Good evening and welcome to the City of Pasco Council Special Workshop Meeting. The council thanks you for being a part of your city government. At meetings, the council takes formal action on items. This is a special workshop meeting, though. We're not making any formal action on items tonight, do I believe. Agenda packets are available on the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. This meeting is also being televised live on PSC-TV, channel 191, on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed on the city's Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and Microsoft Teams webinar. This and previous council meeting video is available on the city's website. Lastly, the public may submit their comments and or questions by contacting the city manager, city clerk, or by using the Ask Pasco app. Madam Clerk, if we could get a roll call, please.
Campos.
Here.
Cotta.
Here.
Figueroa.
Present.
Hernandez.
Present.
Perales.
Here.
Mild.
I think he's coming, but I haven't heard from him.
Okay. And Gren.
I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, we have 6 currently present.
Thank you. If we'd all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, moving on to number 4 already, verbal reports from council members. What's everybody been doing this week? I know you guys have been busy. Yeah. Councilman Hernandez.
We attended Martin Luther King grand opening first phase, which is the Benton Franklin preschool. Is it preschool?
The Head Start.
Head Start. Grand opening, and it was great. The remodel is turned out really nice, and it looks really good. And there'll be a lot of happy kids running around, learning and playing in that area. So, and most of us were there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's good.
Very good. I'm going to go to Councilman Figueroa.
So as I shared last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I was in Tacoma for the state wrestling tournament. And I'm happy to report that amongst our 3 schools between 4A and 3A classification and boys and girls, 12 wrestlers placed top 7 on the entire state. So that's really great. These student athletes put a lot of work, and especially wrestling. I've learned a lot of just the discipline that it takes. So it's just a really great feat to be able to kind of just place, even make it to the state tournament in general, but to place it is phenomenal. So that's kind of what took some of my time, and then I was able to drive back and make it to the opening ceremony with MLK with all of you, and it was just great getting that tour and just hearing the stories of a lot of community members of the memories that they get being in that historic place. And so it was just very rejuvenating to me to see how such a community center can mean so much to the people, and it was overdue to reinvest in it. So I'm looking forward to phase 2 and 3 to get all that funding to make it happen.
Thank you. Councilman Cotta.
Yeah, also joined all of you at the Martin Luther King Community Center. Talked with the guys from Little League, learning about some of what their needs are, which is fun. Got an orientation from Visit Tri-Cities, which is also great, and just meeting with constituents. So yeah, it's been busy.
Thank you. Councilmember Perales.
Appreciate it, Mayor. I sent you guys my notes. Maybe I'll put them online from the Good Roads Association meeting last week. It was a very sobering and depressing kind of a presentation from WashDOT. We talked about the flooding, how it resulted in about $40 to $50 million in damage, and with repairs still ongoing. We talked about how we're seeing a $1.4 billion deficit yearly in regards to preservation for our roads, and we got a lot of good stats for our area, and hundreds of miles of roads that still need to be repaired or are past due. So that was quite eye-opening, and I took a lot of good notes, and so I shared that with you guys. Also attended the Martin Luther King ribbon cutting. That was great to see everyone. It was great to see that first phase of 3 completed, and it was amazing to kind of see the progress. You always see pictures and the construction, and then you see the final product. Honestly, I didn't hear anyone say good job to Booth Construction. Maybe I missed that, but I wasn't sure if they were in attendance, but they did a tremendous job, and I know them from my professional work. They do a really good job, so that was great to see. Had a roundtable with some business owners in downtown about the sandwich board sign ordinance. They had some questions, and a lot of them are going to start getting some signs made. And then I reached out to recently to BNSF Railway to explore potential sponsorship of repainting the locomotive at Volunteer Park. I've had a lot of people reach out to me in the past year about that, and that's kind of been something on the back burner for me, but I've been trying to get a hold of BNSF, and luckily finally got a number, and I've been calling them and emailing them. So, and then lastly, I met with a representative from a local rowing organization here that uses the Columbia River, and they're looking to hopefully get a space down at the Pasco Marina. So just engaging with them and seeing how we can help out.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Councilman Campos.
Yeah, I had a great time on Wednesday with some of you. We met with the CED department, and so it was great. Thank you for your time to come and just kind of tell us everything. And so that was awesome to come together and know more information. With that, and then on Thursday went to the Taco Si Mas ribbon cutting, which was amazing. They had a great tournament. They had music out there, and it smelled amazing. Me and the mayor were kind of there, just holding the door, and it was just awesome to see all the community members just there in celebration, seeing a great turnout from staff and also from the council. It was just a great time to be there. And then, of course, yes, we ended with the MLK. It was just amazing. You felt the pride, the Pasco pride. You felt the legacy of the people that were there and the unity, and it just kind of just gave me a good feeling on the inside, because this is really what Pasco's all about. So overall, great week.
Yeah, thank you. We were all pretty busy this last week. Mayor Pro Tem Milne.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I would have just want to say my apologies. I had planned to go to the MLK Center, but we had our middle daughter had another little baby boy, Mikhail. I'm sure I got that wrong, but
Congratulations.
anyway, so and then we just got back into town a few minutes ago, so it was good to spend time with family. And again, I wish I could have made it, but it is hard when you got your second grandchild on the way and you got to head out of town and get up to Idaho. So it was good. Thank you.
No, that's really good. No, thank you. And we did have a really good representation out there. And I wanted to give a special thanks to Senator Cantwell and Senator Murray's office for sending their representatives out there. I know we didn't have any of our state representatives because they are busy in session right now. And that's like the only window of a day had. And I know a lot of them had a lot of different things planned for a longer period of time. So, yes, I want to thank staff too, again, for opening up for the community economic and development kind of tour that we had, kind of orientating us to that. And just a reminder, there's one for the fire department this week too. I saw Chief Crowley back there and everything. And so, yeah, if we can make it, I mean, these obviously aren't mandatory, but they are a good immersion for us to understand what the city does more. I also was with Councilman Cotta and Chief Crowley on Saturday night for a first responders chaplain dinner. They both ate my cooking. I cooked it. But no, it was just a really nice time with, people that just have such a heart to serve our community, that are just interacting with people on the very worst day of their life oftentimes. And so just having loving, compassionate people around them is just really grateful for the people who do that. Also want to thank staff too for a homeschool tour. I took a large group on this week. Thank you, Miss Edwards, Pasco PD especially. I see you, Chief, back there, that just opening their doors and just really kind of showing what a fine facility we have here. And then, yes, as far as Taco Si Mas goes, I did have a couple employees waited like an hour in line for those, and they were really good. They were everything. One of my employees, real sweetheart, actually brought me back one and everything, so that was really nice. Good food they're cooking up out there. Last but not least, I had my Ben Franklin Council of Governments meeting on Friday, and one of the big things we just talked about was just going forward with foot traffic, pedestrian traffic, and how to make the Tri-Cities more walkable, connectable, and all those kind of things, which really does improve our quality of life. And, just how do we minimize serious accidents and fatalities and that kind of stuff. So appreciate all the eyes that were on that. But just want to thank each and every one of you. I know we all had a busy week. And thank you for staff who was able to attend some of those extra meetings also. So with that, let's move on. We are going to, this is probably going to be the bulk of our meeting tonight. These are items for discussion with opportunity for public comment. The public may comment on each of these topics scheduled for discussion up to 2 minutes per person with a total of 8 minutes per item. If opposing sides wish to speak, both sides receive equal amount of time to speak, or up to 4 minutes each side. And this is letter A we're going to start with, is the Office of the Attorney General, Open Public Meeting Act and Public Records Training. And thank you to our other board and commission members who showed up either here or online for this training. And with that, Ms. Sigdell, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. We have Melissa Drury from, who's a local government public records consultant from Washington Attorney General's office. She comes to us in person all the way from Olympia, so we really appreciate her being in person. And she's going to give us a review of statutory requirements, compliance expectations, and best practices related to open meetings and public records. This is a heavy topic, but an important one to run a transparent government. So she has encouraged us to ask questions along the way, even if you feel like it's not directly related to the topic at hand. Thank you. And welcome, Melissa.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for having me out. Of course, my name is Melissa Drury with the Attorney General's office. I'm sorry for everyone behind me. I'm not trying to ignore you, so I'll definitely try and look both ways. We are going to be talking about the Open Public Meetings Act and then also the Public Records Act. I know most people do not like this topic, so I won't take it personally, but I know many of you would rather just sit through a root canal than have to actually do this training. So I'm sorry that you're here at like 6 o'clock at night. But I promise that you are getting the actual, training version. So once you're done with this, you don't have to do it again for a couple years. So cheer for that once you're done tonight. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and just walk through these. For a little bit of background on who I am. So I have been doing public records and been a specialist for about 14 years now. There's something fundamentally wrong with me because I enjoy this stuff. I really enjoy transparency, public records, all of this. I've been with the Attorney General's office for 4 years now, and on top of doing the consultation program where I get to go around and meet folks at local jurisdictions, I also am doing public records on behalf of the state of Washington. So everything that I'm going to be talking to you about today, not only in the OPMA and PRA, it applies to me as well. So I'm not here telling you from the state, here's what you should do. I'm not doing it. No, this is stuff that we all have to do as a government, okay? So with that, we will go ahead and get started. That's who I am. That's my program. And as noted, so we are going to walk through the significance of open government and transparency, and then we're going to walk through the OPMA and the PRA. As noted, if you do have questions along the way, even if you're going, hey, that's not how we do it, or do we have to do this like this, please ask. I am here for you. So if for some reason you're just going, I don't get this, let's discuss it. Let's have that open talk, because more than likely, if you have that question, someone else in here does as well. This is a weird topic all the way around. Okay, so first off, when it comes to open government training, it is required for every member of a governing body to take this training within 90 days of taking office. Some of you I know are new, so congratulations again, this is fulfilling that. Some of you have taken this training before. You are required to take this every 4 years at least. So if you are re-upping, congratulations, this is that. We do suggest taking public records training a little more often because things change quickly with the PRA. OPMA pretty much stays the same, kind of has for a long time, essentially since it went into effect in 1971, but the Public Records Act changes all the time. As noted, legislation's in right now, and there are several items that may change in the Public Records Act just coming up with this session. So definitely pay attention to those things. My office actually does give free trainings after every leg session and every quarter to discuss any legal updates, including leg updates and or any court cases that have passed. So if you're interested in that, please reach out. Happy to throw you on that list. When it comes to the trainings, you can do them online or in person. So again, you're taking care of that today. There are additional training resources available on the Attorney General's website in the Open Government page. On that page, you will see a lot of different information, but if you go under Sunshine Laws, you will find all of the information about public records and OPMA. So a lot of people ask, why are we doing this? Well, both of these were enacted and passed by the people. When it comes to transparency in Washington State, it is very expected. Washington State has one of the highest expectations of transparency in the entire country. Washington State and Florida are the two that expect the most transparency and have the highest fines if we get it wrong. So it is kind of a big deal. When it comes to the OPMA, this was passed in 1971. And the Public Records Act was passed in 1972. So as you can see, the beginning of the 70s, we did a lot of changes in state government in Washington. But both of these still apply and have gotten a little bit more strict over the years. So first, we're going to talk about Open Public Meetings Act. Essentially, the core principles are we have to keep the public informed. We can't just make all decisions behind closed doors. I understand sometimes it would be a lot easier to do that, but we can't do that. We have to keep the public involved. We have to get their side of it. We must take, public comment, hold open hearings, hold these meetings so that we can have everybody involved. When it does come to the OPMA, you have to make sure it's liberally construed. So if you're questioning something like, hey, 3 or 4 of us are getting together, is that going to be a quorum? Should we list it? I don't know. Then yes. Think of the fact that you're just going to have that transparency. So if you're questioning whether or not something should be advertised, even if you're not going to be making decisions, you want to put that out. Don't take the chance on it. Make sure that the public knows what's going on and they don't feel like you're hiding stuff from them. When it comes to the basics, all meetings of the governing body of a public agency shall be open to the public. We know this essentially because we're here, and I heard the beginning of your meeting. You do have the open comment. You have it outlined very well. We have, this much time. We're discussing this. This is our agenda. That's wonderful. That's how it should go so that they know the order and the flow of the meeting. When it does come to this, though, please remember that a meeting means it's a gathering in which you are going to take some sort of action, okay? I'm going to skip item 2 because I'm going to come back and talk about a little bit more with serial meetings. But when you're holding a meeting, you know that you have to have a majority. You have to have that quorum. If you don't, cancel the meeting or reschedule it for another time because obviously you need that quorum to make the decisions. Now, just because you title it something else does not mean it is not technically a meeting. So even if you put it under a retreat, workshop, something like that, just changing the wording does not change it. So if you're going to be taking action, we need to still list it as a meeting, okay? When you're receiving information, though, from others, so for example, one of you is having a meeting with the public works director, we'll say, that is just informational. That's not an actual meeting. So that's not something that falls under OPMA. That's just you finding out information, asking a question, and getting that just given to you, which is totally fine. That is not under the OPMA, so don't worry about that. Now, going back to the second item, this is a tough one with serial meetings, especially if you're new, because this can happen accidentally. If for some reason you're having a discussion and then we pull in more people, we're making a decision outside of the chambers, this can be an issue. So you can send an email to somebody who then writes back and goes, yeah, that is a good idea, let's do it. Third person comes in and goes, done, on the next meeting. Or yes, we've made this decision, now it's official. You cannot do that because that is technically a meeting outside of the meeting time. This can also happen via text message, just chit-chatting, so be very careful. Essentially, if you are with a group of each other, try not to talk business. Do not talk business if possible. Talk about your life, your kids, everything, those awesome tacos you were talking about earlier, which I'm jealous of. But just don't talk about work because you don't want to take that chance of having that accidental serial meeting. If that accidental serial meeting happens, it needs to be stopped immediately. So if you are catching it, you're in it, that's when you need to go, wait, we have to stop this now. Let's discuss this later. Let's put this on an agenda. Let's bring this up for a briefing, etc. So if you catch yourself in that, try and stop it immediately, okay? When it comes to action is listed as the following. So, we're taking public testimony, we're looking at, considerations, final action, evaluation. So there's a lot of items that cause action in a meeting. We have to look at what we're doing. Is it something where we're just listening, taking testimony, trying to, come up with more public support? What are we doing? Or are we trying to make this decision with the public here? What specifically are we doing? That's what we need to look at with each of our meetings because there are different reasons for meetings. We have our regular meetings, special meetings, executive meetings. We're going to break these down a little bit more now. Now, please realize that the OPMA is triggered as soon as you're having the meeting. You don't have to have a final action to actually have it trigger the OPMA. As soon as you're meeting like this, we are under OPMA. Okay? When it comes to a final action, that is your final vote. We all know this. So, when we're taking yays and nays, coming up with a decision, that is our final action. When it comes to final action, though, it has to be done in front of the public. You cannot do this in an executive session. If for some reason you're in an exec session and you come up with a decision and then go into the regular meeting, you still have to discuss, how did we get here? Why are we here? This is our final decision. But having that explanation is very needed, even if you're coming out of that executive session. And secret ballots are not allowed. So as we're seeing here, everything needs to be public to the eyes so that we all have it. We don't have that question. We know what's going on. The public doesn't wonder. When it comes to meetings, there has to be a collective intent to meet. So as noted earlier, if you're just meeting with the Public Works Director, getting some information, that's not going to fall under the OPMA. But these are two very specific cases that I want to bring up because they bring up both sides of what happens here. So, first one, Citizens Alliance versus San Juan County. Essentially, they were trying to get their GMA passed. They were having issues, and they kept, just falling through. So, essentially, some of the staff decided to meet and discuss, how can we get this taken care of? But every so often, one of the council members would be like, hey, what's going on with this? Are we gaining any momentum? Where are we? There was no official, quorum. There was no official attendance, no meeting minutes, nothing. It was just discussion of the minds. The public got worried ultimately and tried to bring up the fact that, hey, this should be under OPMA. Ultimately, it found, no, it shouldn't be because it was not an intent to actually meet under that definition of meeting. So if we're just getting that discussion, we're getting that information, there's not a quorum, we are not going to consider that a meeting, okay? Now, on the flip side, when I was talking about serial meetings just a little bit ago, this is a really great example of that. So Egan versus City of Seattle, essentially what happened is City of Seattle passed a tax and then found out, whoa, nobody likes this. Everybody hates us, hates the tax. Wow, this sucks. So over the weekend, they had a 3-day weekend, a bunch of council members and other individuals working in the office had over a dozen conversations regarding, hey, how can we overturn this? Can we do this? We're just going to go on Monday. We're going to change this, blah, blah, blah. So they actually, over the 3-day weekend, determined that this new tax bill was going to be DOA on Monday over text messages and voicemails. There were even voicemails that were left to council members they couldn't get a hold of saying, hey, we're going to kill this in the water on Monday. We're just letting you know. Jump on board. Bye. Yikes. So do not do that, okay? Don't make that decision behind closed doors. Don't do it over text messages. Don't do it over voicemails. And please don't write it out. So you want to make sure that even if something like this happens, we pass it, the public hates it, we're going to bring it back for discussion. Why are we going to repeal this? Why? What happened? What's going on? Let's take that testimony. It's going to be hot water, but we're going to take that testimony and then make a decision in public, okay? As discussed earlier, there's different meeting types. So, of course, regular meeting, that's kind of what this is. You guys have your workshops, you have your regular meetings set up, everybody in the public knows when those are. They can count on those. Now, a special meeting is just that. It's a meeting that is not a regular meeting. We have to have a special reason for a special meeting, though. We'll talk about that in a second. When it comes to regular meeting procedures, the agenda does need to be posted at least 24 hours in advance, which is definitely done here. It can be changed though, because we know that sometimes we'll put out the agenda and then staff comes up and goes, oh, I have to put something on it, I have to change this, oh no, I forgot it, da, da, da. Or we forgot to put it out, notice for something. Okay, that's fine, we can update it. We're gonna resend back out that agenda and repost it though with the update, that way the public knows it was changed. But please know that if for some reason we hang up the agenda at 23 hours and 59 minutes, it does not negate action the next day. So if someone comes in and was like, I got it 23 hours ahead of time, not 24 hours, it doesn't do anything. So we still sent out notice, it's still a valid meeting, we're good to go, okay? Special meetings get a little bit more in the weeds here. So if we are doing a special meeting, we do have to send out notification 24 hours in advance. We want to let them know the exact place and time of this meeting and the reason if we can. If for some reason though, something is going on, there is some sort of danger, there's a fire, there's flooding, something like that, we cannot safely hold the meeting here. It can be held elsewhere. But again, you need to let them know at least 24 hours in advance, if possible, where that's going to be and when. If you can do it remotely, even better, because then they don't have to worry about the location and they can just be on it. When you do send out special meeting procedures, though, we're going to follow like a regular meeting. We're going to let all of our media know. If we have a list of individuals, we're going to send it out to them and just follow that same protocol. When it comes to emergency special meetings, we don't have to give notice, but emergency special meetings are just that. There has to be some threat. A couple years ago, when there were horrible, fires going on, or if there's a, flood in the Columbia and we've got levees that are going to break, something's going on. If there is some reason that we have to have that meeting right now, then yes, we can do that. We can go ahead and do it in person, or we can do it remote. But if we're going to go ahead and hold it remotely, we need to let them know it's not safe to come to our building, hence the reason we're doing that. We want to let the public know why we're doing it so that they also do not try and come to the area that is unsafe, okay? Now, in remote emergency meetings, we can go ahead and hold them fully remote. But if we're doing fully remote emergency meetings, there has to be in a declared emergency. The declared emergency can be local, state, or federal, okay? So anytime there's that declared emergency, whether it's here or higher up, that's fine, that can work. But we do want to make sure that others can also listen to this meeting if they want to come into it. So again, we're going to have that Zoom option or Teams or, whatever we have available for the public there. At the bottom, I did just want to note in that I don't know what your policy says here for your board, but most boards do have the availability if you're not able to come in that you can remotely join. So I don't know if that's an option. Okay, perfect. So yeah, if that's something that's regular for you to make that quorum, that's totally fine too. But this is just specifically for remote emergency meetings in case there's danger. So a lot of people ask us, what is a governing body? Do I have to deal with the OPMA? Yeah. Yes, you guys know you do because you are city, sorry. But essentially, if you are a multi-member board and you make a decision and you're a public agency, you're gonna have to deal with the OPMA. So that's really everybody here for the most part. You're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to work with, everything that falls under it, making sure those agendas are out, making sure we have minutes, making sure we have everything that is required. Now, this also does fall onto advisory bodies. So if you have a planning advisory commission, someone like that, they also do need to have OPMA training. So I do know there are some other boards and councils here. But yeah, essentially, you just want to make sure that they are falling under that as well, because those records can be requested and they can fall under the OPMA. So as noted, yep, here you go. But if for some reason you are trying to help somebody in the future and they go, do we have to do this? I wanted to put this list in here for you. That way you have something to reference. It is down there in the RCW 4230020 with an actual list. But this is pretty much all encompassing. So if for some reason you ever need to return back to it because you're looking at creating a new board or something, do we have to do that with them? This is what the RCW reads. Now the OPMA does not apply to the courts, legislator, that's a different conversation, or agencies not defined as public. So any private agencies, yeah, they don't have to deal with this. They can hold their meetings, they can write whatever they'd like in their emails, they can say whatever they'd like in their voicemails, come up with decisions, it's all good. But for us members of the public, we have to do this with the OPMA, so I'm sorry for a public agency. When it does come to collective bargaining, please realize that the OPMA does not apply to that as well. There is some question on that sometimes, but that does not fall under the OPMA. When it comes to public attendance, essentially we can't place conditions on if people can or cannot come. We just want to make sure that our meetings are posted, that they can come, that they can either come remotely or in person. And if they would like to speak, we want to let them speak. We want to make sure that we hear the people, but we also want to make sure that they are encouraged to, we tell them how to do it, which I heard at the beginning, we'll allow you the 2 minutes, you can come up and speak. Whatever. But we want to let them know how things work and make sure that we're treating everybody the same. So if you're giving 2 minutes to everybody, every single person gets 2 minutes. If we're shortening it because we have a room full of people and limited time, everybody gets that shortened time. So we just want to make sure that we're putting those same rules across the board for everybody. If somebody does bring in a cell phone or a camera or something, they are allowed to record you, but they can't be disruptive. So if they're sitting in their seat, just recording you, cool. Probably boring footage to watch later, but if they are up in people's faces or coming up to their dais or, disrupting, then we can go ahead and take action and, do some other things, which I'll talk about in just a second here. When I already talked about remote observation, but the one thing that I did want to make sure of is that any recordings are available online for a minimum of 6 months after the meeting. That way, if anybody has any questions, they can just go back and find that recording. Okay, so when it comes to public comment, oral comment, of course, we want to make sure that folks know they can come up and speak. They have their times, they have their, their signal up here. It's very well put out. When it comes to written comment, though, we do want to make sure that we let people know when they can send that in by. You can set a time, so if it's, 8 or 9 a.m., the day of the meeting, or 24 hours in advance, whatever you'd like to put on there. That way you can all receive the written comment ahead of time and, read it out loud or determine if it has something to do with your upcoming meeting. But yeah, as long as you have the reasonable deadline posted somewhere for folks to see, that's really what matters. Okay, so executive session is very specific. When you're holding an executive session, you can do it separately in a special meeting or as part of a regular meeting. A lot of times councils will do it before the regular meeting starts. That way it's just done, then they can go into their regular meeting and be done. There are specific purposes set out in RCW 423110 for holding an executive session. Now, when you do have the executive session and doors are going to be closed, somebody does need to go out in the hallway and announce it. Even if there's nobody sitting out there and it's an empty hall, we still have to have somebody go, we're going into executive session for, discussion of litigation until 9:45. All right, cool, no one's out here, shut the door. If for some reason, though, you hit 9:45 and go, whoop, we need more time, you have to go out and announce it. We're going to go until 10:15. So we're extending our executive session until 10:15 a.m. Even if no one's in the hall, we still have to announce it. Now, if for some reason, though, you get done 15, 20 minutes early, you still have to wait to start the regular meeting. So if you announce we're done at 10:15, you have to wait till 10:15. If it's only 10 o'clock, you can go check your email, go get a cup of coffee, whatever. But essentially, you cannot start that meeting until the announced time. Here's some examples. Again, the RCW does have specifics in it, but some examples of an executive session. You're going to, discuss qualification of an applicant, or if you are looking at buying property and you don't want to be outbid, underbid, you can discuss that behind closed doors to stop that, happening. If you're going to review negotiations, if we've got any litigation, or if we have to have discussions of national security. Wanted to put that on there because I know that's kind of a hot topic around everywhere right now. So if that is needed, these are some reasons that you can have an executive session. Now, when it does come to the minutes, your clerk will have to note in there specifically, why did we have this executive session? And it has to meet up with something in the RCW. If you are traveling or gathering for any reason, again, try not to discuss work. Keep things separate if you can. If you do catch yourself, though, in that discussion of work, please stop and say, whoa, wait a minute, we can't do this. Okay, on to the next thing. So how's your dog? Just make sure that you are stopping that conversation, okay? I know that it is tough sometimes because we see each other at work. We know what's going on. We want to discuss stuff. We want to get stuff taken care of, but we really can't so that we don't have that accidental serial meeting. When it comes to minutes, of course, this is taken care of by your clerk, but essentially, there's no specific format for minutes. This is whatever you decide. Some councils like full storybooks. They want minutes that have everything, who spoke, what they said, what time this happened. It reads out like a whole, legal chart. But then there's others who just want very abbreviated minutes. So it really is up to you as a council how you would like those minutes done and what your expectation is. The only thing is if there is an executive session again, that specific reason has to be put in there. When it does come to minutes, though, we want to get them done and approved as soon as possible. That way they're just out there for the public. I'm sure most of you do it like the very next meeting. As soon as you just cycle through, have minutes approved. If for some reason you don't, though, just try to get them out as soon as possible. That way the public can have that information. So as noted earlier, we don't want folks to come in and interrupt. It happens from time to time though. If this does happen, you do have the right to stop them from speaking, okay? Ask them to stop, cut off the mic. You can definitely have them escorted out if they need to. If things get worse though, as a council, you do have the right to stop the meeting. If it gets that bad, you can go ahead and either stop the meeting, you can go ahead and cancel the meeting right there because of safety issues, or you can actually move the meeting to a different location. So if for some reason there's another area on the city's campus that you can move it to, hey, we're gonna move over here, we're gonna reconvene at 11:30. We're just letting everybody in attendance know. We'll turn back on the Zoom link at that time. But there needs to be that reason in the minutes once again. Why did we have to break? Why did we have to move? What's going on? But that is something that you can do. So if it ever does come down to that, please know that that is an option should it come to that. When it comes to penalties, OPMA penalties are not on the agency, but on the individual. So when it comes to these fines, there's usually a $500 one for the first hit. It's a $500 fine, just kind of a, hey, don't do it again. Learn your lesson, move forward. After that, it's about $1,000. That starts adding up, especially if there's multiple violations, okay? After that, if they see that, hey, you're still not learning your lesson, then we're gonna look at costs and attorney fees. And we all know that attorney fees, those are not pretty. That can add an extra 15, 20 grand just like that. So you're looking at, 500, 1,000, 20 grand. So you don't want to do that. So if for some reason something happens and you do get that first violation, just learn from that and don't get that second one, because as you move up, the price moves up. You don't want to do that. Now, if for some reason there is an OPMA violation and action was taken at this said meeting, so you had a hearing, you bought a piece of property, you passed something, that may actually be declared as void. If that OPMA violation goes through, you may have to hold said hearing once again, and that can be detrimental depending on what the issue is or what you did pass. So definitely think about this. Are we doing things correctly? Do we have our quorum? Have we done everything right before we pass this? And that is the OPMA portion. Okay, do you want to take a mental break or just jump on into public records?
Please proceed.
Okay, you're like, just get it done, pull off the Band-Aid. All right, I like it. Okay, so we've gone through the Open Public Meetings Act. In all honesty, for the city, I do have to say things look like they are going well as far as that's concerned. I did look at your website. I see where meetings are. I've seen, how the agendas are posted, the packets. I heard the way you open the meeting. It sounds like things are going really well as far as that's concerned here. So congratulations on that. I mean, you should be happy with that. So yay, first part done. All right, now we're going to get into public records. Public records is kind of the chonky part of transparency here. This is the one that can really, really, really make or break an agency in some cases. So here we go. First, we need to know what we're looking for. When a public records request comes in, we're all going, and okay, or if you don't look at them every day, you're going, what does that mean to me? Okay, so what does a public record look like? Essentially, what it is, it's a writing related to the conduct of government that is prepared, owned, used, or retained by the agency. But again, what does that mean to you? First off, writing, again, this was passed in 1972, excuse me. And when this was passed in the 70s, writing was writing. We had files, we had file clerks. It was so easy to find records at the time. Now, writing is everything. I mean, I essentially akin it to glitter. Because of the fact that it is everywhere. We're looking at anything that we touch, all of our software that we're using during the day, all of our communications. So not just phones, but we're talking about emails, text messages. Do we have internal servers in which we get emails or communication from the public? Do we use that to write back to them? Everything that we're touching is creating these records. Is it related to the conduct of government? Pretty straightforward. Does it have to do with our work that we're doing? Probably yes. Now, real quick, I will say this a couple times, please keep life and work separate, because though we are sending out items that have to do with the conduct of government, if in that same email you started out with, just got back from Hawaii. Our drink package was awesome. We partied so hard, and then go into government business. That whole thing is probably going to go out. So everyone's going to know you were in Hawaii, rocking the free package, drinks on the cruise ship. So don't do that, okay? Now, when we're looking at public records, this last section of the pie graph here, the POUR, this is where we get into the weeds of what we're looking for. So first, P, prepared. Again, straightforward. Is it something we created for work? Is it a policy? Is it a draft? Is it an email? What is it? O is for owned. Now, when we're looking at things that we own, we have to think outside the box sometimes, because think about if we're looking at building a new park and we have a feasibility study done. That feasibility study is now ours. We own it, and it can be requested. Okay? Going down in the weeds a little bit more, U for used. This goes deeper. This is where everybody has to think about this, because what do we use to get to answers? Sometimes we come up with research. Sometimes we have, folks that give us information. Sometimes the public helps us, whatever it is. But if we actually use something like a study, say we use a study from UW Medical regarding use of Narcan, and it changes how our police department handles that Narcan, we have now used that study to make a decision, and therefore it can be requested as a public record. So when we see these requests come in and we see that any and all, we have to really think about, did we use something to get here? Do we own something related to this? Where can these records be living? And finally, R is for retained, which we'll talk about a little bit further down, but essentially every document has some sort of a lifespan, whether it's transitory and can be tossed immediately, or something that we have to keep for 20 plus years because we're required to by the state. But essentially, it is a writing related to the conduct of government, prepared, owned, used, or retained by the agency. So when we're thinking what is public record and what am I looking for, this is what we're looking for. When it comes to personal devices and accounts, this is always the scary one, because again, you want to keep your life and your work separate. If you have two different devices, one for work and one for life, please do not cross-contaminate the two. What will happen here is you'll get an any and all request. This any and all request is going to be, hey, we want anything related to enter employee's name. And then we're going to start seeing things come through. Hey, there's a personal Gmail that was used. Now we need you to search your Gmail. Or we saw a text message come across on your personal phone number. Now we have to have you search your personal device. If you have to search a personal device, what you're going to have to do is fill out what's called a NISN affidavit. It's kind of a pain because it has really detailed explanations on there. It wants you to go, what did you search for specifically? Where did you search? Did you search email, Facebook, text messages, chats? Where did you search on your device? And did you find anything, yes or no? If you say yes, what did you actually hand over as a public record? And then what did you not hand over and why? So it ends up being a real big explanation of, oh my gosh, I have this personal, So it's not that you're going to get in trouble for having it on there, but essentially when you hand it over, you're going to have to probably do this affidavit, which takes time. It's a pain, and we just essentially don't want you to have to deal with that. And neither does your public records officer, because then they also have to deal with that and hold on to it. But when it does come to, using your personal device, please realize that the record will only be responsible if it is pertaining to actual work. So if you are writing to another council member or a director and saying, hey, we need to have this discussion over, budget or another employee or whatever it may be, that's work. So yes, that's going to be responsive. Now, if you're just writing to your spouse, though, and going, I cannot handle today, I'm going to quit, I swear on everything, I'm not doing it the rest of this year, okay, that's just you venting. That is not going to be responsive, even though you're talking about work. That is just you, you're just you chilling, so don't worry about it. But again, if it has to do with actual work ongoings, then that is going to be responsive as a public record. Now, we're not going to quite walk through all of this, but I just kind of wanted to show you what your public records officer has to deal with, because this is the ladder, meaning this is how they walk it down. The request may look the same, but what they're doing is tons of work between each step. When it comes to the Public Records Act, we have to show all the work that we are doing as an agency, and that comes down to what the public records officer can get from staff, from elected, from everybody. When it comes to this, though, we can't just go, if for some reason we get into litigation, we can't just walk into court and go, this is what we do for every request. The judge is going to go, okay, C+, and we have to walk in and say, we got the request this day. What did we do? We sent out the 5-day letter this day, asked for this response. We wrote to staff on this day. We did this. So we have to be able to prove every single step of every single thing that we're doing. Public records is the one part of law that is essentially guilty until proven innocent instead of innocent until proven guilty. So it's really, really, really important to make sure that you even, if you get a request, are treating it like a hot potato, and you want to get it over to the clerk immediately because it is really important, and we'll talk about why in just a sec. When it comes to the actual request, there's no specific format that's required. You do have a suggestion of, hey, go to our website, send us an email, go through our portal, email the public records officer, you can send, there's so many options on there. But we're still going to have folks who want to walk into the front counter and go, I want to put in a public records request. And they don't care who they're talking to, what time of day it is, they don't want to fill out a form. Okay, fine. So as an elected or, anybody that's up front, you might get caught. You might get that person who's going, nope, I'm talking to you right now. I want to make this request. So best thing you can do is, okay, can I just get some contact information for you? Okay. And what are you looking for? Even if it's just a basic, hey, I just want meeting minutes from last week, and they can make up a name. My favorite so far has been Pikachu, Chicken Strip, and Darth Vader. I love those. But yeah, so they can make up names. They can be anonymous if they'd like. But, okay, cool. What's an email address for you? Anonymous at Proton. Cool. Got your email. Let's go from there. So, yeah, if you do have that person that walks up, encourage them. Hey, we do have a website for that. Or, hey, we do have a public records officer you can talk to. But if they're like, no, I'm going to make it with you. All right. Just jot it down and then send it over to your PRO immediately. Okay. When it comes to the request, again, it doesn't have to be in a formal format, nor does it have to look a specific way. So you may see different types of requests. I'm making a public records request, or they're going to say, I'm, making a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act. They might just use different verbiage, which is totally fine. But essentially, if they are asking for a copy of something that actually exists, there's a real record that exists, then yes, we're going to treat it as a public records request. Now, the request does need to come in during normal office hours, so you probably have, an 8 to 5 or something like set up in your policy. That way they know when requests can come in. If it comes in after hours, it'll be treated as, it'll be taken care of the next day, Now, a request for information is not a request for records under the Public Records Act. So you will have individuals come up and go, why'd the council do that? I don't know. Your PRO's not going to answer that question either, so I don't know, talk to them. But it can't just be a, hey, why? It needs to be a, well, I would like a copy of, or hey, well, give me some, give me the information based off that. So we want them to actually ask us for records that exist, not, well, why? That's not a Public Records Act, or not a Public Records request. Now, if you do receive communication and you're not quite sure if it's a public records request, still send it over to your PRO. Just shoot it over to them. And if they say yay, cool, they'll log it and take care of it. And if not, all right, then it is what it is. But, if for some reason you're not sure, it's always good to just double check. That way there's no question. When it comes to the identity of the requesters, we want to treat them all the same, just like the OPMA rules. When it comes to transparency, we're making sure that everybody's treated the same. Now, this does not mean that everybody's going to get the same records. It does depend who they are. There are times where media gets more information. They might get full dates of birth. They might get information about, domestic violence that has happened to individuals at the city. They might get more information. So we do need to actually keep an eye out for who is requesting these records. Also, when it comes to juvenile records, that's a whole other ballgame. But yeah, it depends on who is requesting those records because different folks get different records sometimes. Sometimes the parent gets more records. Sometimes the attorney gets more records. So we have to really figure out who is making this request and make sure they are getting the correct records. The 5-day letter is the one hard, fast deadline in the Public Records Act. This is the one thing we have to hit. If for some reason we do not hit the 5-day letter, it goes to litigation. That is always the first thing you see in that, that summary of the case was no 5-day letter was sent, and then it just goes from there. But they really always make sure that 5-day letter was not sent. That 5-day letter was not sent, so this is a big one. Now, the 5-day letter literally is that. It has to be sent within 5 business days of us receiving that public records request. We have 5 options for this letter. 1, we can provide the record. If it's something that simple, no redactions, right there, copy of it on the counter, get it out the door, we're good to go. We can also provide a web link. So if we have something on our website, meeting minutes, past information, old policy, something like that that fulfills this request, we can send them a link to that on our website. I do need to give you a word of caution here though. If you see a request come in and we don't house those records, so City of Pasco does not house those records, make sure to let the person know that. Because sometimes, okay, I need to tell you this because I know that you're going to want to, you're going to want to help out. You're going to be like, I know the answer to this. Let's just get that answer, get this done. But you need to let them know, the requester or the constituent, we actually don't have those records. You're going to have to go to Benton County. You can send them a link to Benton County after telling them that. But we need to specifically say, we don't have those records. Here's the customer service portion. You can go there, okay? Now, if we are fulfilling the request, though, and we do have those records on our website, here's the link. There we go. Good to go. We're done. Our third option is we can actually acknowledge and then provide a reasonable estimate of time. This is where staff can really help the public records officer because they have to give a realistic time. If we need 2 weeks, okay. If someone's out of town and you can't get records to them for a month because you're going on that cool cruise again in Hawaii, let them know. I'm not going to have records for a month. That way they can either start working on another section of the request or they can let the requester know it's going to be some time before we get back to you. That way it's realistic because though we can move the chains down the field if we need to when it comes to the time, we still have to give them a definitive date to start, okay? We can also ask for clarification. Sometimes we get requests in and we have no idea what they're asking for. Neither do they because they're using weird acronyms or, as we're seeing sometimes, they'll use AI to write out requests now. And AI doesn't quite know what it's talking about all the time, so we've seen some really interesting translations. Or you're going to see a request come through that looks like it's been through Google Translate 15 times, and you're like, whoa, I have no idea. It's okay if we go back to the requester. So if you see something come through and go, I have no idea what they're asking for, let the PRO know. We can go back to the requester and say, we don't know what you're looking for, or is this what you're looking for? And kind of figure that out from there. Finally, we can deny the request. Now, this is if for some reason we don't house a record. So for example, Benton County has it, Yakima County has it, we don't have it. Or if for some reason we don't have that record. So, there are certain records that after a certain amount of time, we can either send to state archives or destroy. If we either destroy them or send them to archives, we get to let the requester know that. Per state law, you have to go to state archives and request that now. Or it was destroyed on this particular day under this RCW. So those are our 5 options. But again, this is the one hard, fast deadline that is needed to be hit in the Public Records Act. When it comes to searching for records, we want to be perfect. We do. We want to get it right. We want to make sure there's no issue. We're not here to make people question what we're doing. The last thing we want is to bring distrust. We seriously don't want to do that. I've never met somebody in government who's like, yeah, I really just want to mix it up and just see what happens. No, we want to make sure that we're doing our jobs, we're trusted, we're reelected. We want that. We want that trust in us. So when it comes to searching, I really enjoy this quote. The adequacy of a search is judged by a standard of reasonableness. That is, the search must be reasonably calculated to uncover all relevant documents. It's saying that we just need to search where we believe these records would be. We don't have to have 100% perfection all the time, but we do need to be able to prove our searches. As I noted earlier, we have to be able to prove everything in the Public Records Act. So, this is rhetorical, but essentially, how are you documenting your searches? Are you documenting your searches? If you're getting that request coming in from your PRO, are you looking at it and going, eh? Or, yeah, I did it. Or are you actually writing back something? Are you sending, an email back going, yeah, I searched these terms, I didn't have anything. Or are you writing back in the portal? Checked, didn't have anything. Or yes, they did have records. Think about how you're communicating with your public records officer and if you are. If you're not, you can work on that because you definitely want to have documentation. Yes, I searched. No, I didn't search. That way, if there's a question, whether it is from the requester or in litigation, the public records officer and your attorney are able to prove that. Yep, we have it right here in writing. They did search these key terms. We were unable to find these records. Okay? This is why, also, we ask you to document. As you'll see in the lower right-hand corner is your public records officer, and they have to deal with everyone. We're dealing with everybody's different types of filing. If they file, they might not file. There might be a hoarder in the agency or two, usually in the planning department. Sorry if you're in the planning department. But there's always that person that's like, I will not throw things away. I refuse to throw things away. So you definitely want to work with them if you know that they're in your division, or, just try and get things thrown away if possible. It does help too with historical information. So if you are somebody who has been with the city for quite a while, and you can help the public records officer out with, hey, talk to so-and-so because they've moved divisions 4 times and they might know about this, please do that, because it's really tough coming in as a public records officer and going, I don't have the historical knowledge here. So if you ever have help like that as an individual in the city, please let them know so they can dig in deeper. When it comes to searches, again, we need to know who holds what records, where are they located? Are they all in a back room? Is there a basement? Is there an old attic somewhere with old historical documents? When I was clerk of the board at Mason County, I got hired and they took me over to the PA's office, took me up to the attic and said, there's records in here going back to the 70s. We don't know. Ugh. So if that exists, try and make it not exist. When it comes to searches, think about easy versus complex. There are some searches where you're going to go, nope, that's easy. It's on our website. Good to go. Now, some searches, though, are going to be very complex. It's going to be an any and all. We're going to have to talk to everybody in the agency, past and current. That does happen from time to time. Please be aware of acronyms, misspellings, or alternative spellings. If for some reason a request comes in and it's for someone named Ben Smith, and Smith is spelled wrong, that is not an aha moment. You don't get to go, well, they spelled Ben Smith wrong, so we don't have to fulfill this because, haha. You don't get to do that. You get to go, I know it's misspelled, but all right, I know who they're talking about. Because, that happens. People don't know something, or they may accidentally misspell, there's a keystroke off, whatever it may be. When Bob Ferguson was still in office, I can't even tell you how many spellings there were for his name. And it was like, well, I know who they're talking about, so I'll just do it. But when it comes to that, though, also share that information. If you know for a fact, oh, this is misspelled, let your public records officer know so they can reach out to other staff and go, whoa, change your search because this is all wrong, okay? As I said earlier, think about how you communicate with the public. Do you have just a normal email? Do you have portals? Are you using your phone? Are you using text messaging? Are you using Facebook chat? How are you communicating with the public and your constituents? Think about that when these requests come in. When it comes to exemptions, records are essentially presumed open. We have to have a specific reason to actually redact something. This reason must exist in state or federal law. Okay? Currently in Washington state, we have about 630 exemptions on the books. Anything from attorney-client privilege to special rules about ginseng and, native treaties. So, there's a lot of different things in our redaction logs here. The exemptions are narrowly construed, though. So as I said, if you have personal life topic in paragraph 1 and then work in paragraph 2, if there's stuff to be exempted in there, we'll exempt paragraph 2 and leave paragraph 1 open. We are just taking out the information that needs to be exempted. It can't be the whole page just because. When it comes to us redacting something, it's on us. It's on us as an agency. We have to bear the burden of proof. So we have to be able to say, yes, we are hiding this information because it is, currently in investigation, or this is a public employee. This is, information that we cannot release to the public. There has to be that specific reason. And we have to let the requester know what we're exempting. So essentially, yes, we're going to give you this black box, but we can't just give you the black box. We have to let you know that it has to do with attorney-client privilege, okay? They need to know what technically is under there without seeing the actual item. There cannot be any silent withholding. If for some reason you are working on a request, you see something come through and you're going, ooh, I don't want that to get out in public. This is not the time to just shred it. Okay? You don't get to just turn around and go, oh, I didn't see anything. Bye. It doesn't exist. If for some reason that happens and it is found out later, which does happen because we have everything electronically now, the silent withholding penalties are quite large. Most judges will happily use silent withholding as a huge wrist slap. We've seen amounts in $1.3 million for City of Tacoma, $360,000 for Yakima School District. So there's a lot of different amounts out there. But I mean, you're just thinking about this is all general funds. There is no insurance policy for public records in the state of Washington. So this is going to come out of your general budget. Think about what $1.3 million would do to your general budget. It can hit you quick. So that's why I definitely warn against this. When it comes to privacy, there is no general privacy. So I know you're going to get to see a request sometime and go, what about my right to privacy? There really isn't much, especially as a public employee, okay? Now, we're going to go ahead and exert privacy if it meets the two items here. It has to be highly offensive to a reasonable person and not of legitimate concern to the public. Now, the highly offensive is the tough part to prove. Highly offensive needs to be something that is going to be like a career killer. It's very detrimental. It is bad. Or if it's not of legitimate concern to the public, we're talking about, discussions that you're having with like your doctor or something like that. It's not going to be anything that needs to go out. It is not of legitimate concern. When it comes to using privacy, though, privacy is actually just a definition in the RCW for public records. It's not an exemption. So privacy has to be put with something else. We can't just say it's privacy. It has to be privacy in ADA, privacy in HIPAA, privacy and something else. So it can't just be alone. It has to be paired with something else. So it's really hard to exert privacy. With the draft exemption, there is none, okay? Everybody always goes, but my drafts. No, what there is there's a deliberative process exemption. What this is essentially a cone of silence while you are working on a policy level decision. So I like to akin it, I'm throwing back now, I like to akin it to Fight Club. We keep it close here, we don't talk about it, we're working on it, don't go out. Now this is tough, especially for board members, and especially if it's an election year, because you want to share the good work you're doing. But while something is being worked on under this exemption, you really do have to keep it in that cone of silence. It has to just be between you and whatever department or whoever, legal, and make sure it stays like that. If for some reason, though, you go out in the public and somebody says, hey, we should do this, and you go, actually, we're working on that right now, you just blew this exemption, and that portion can now be requested in public records immediately. So if your clerk all of a sudden gets in something and sees this request and goes, wait, that's not something the public should know, expect them to come to you and go, how'd this get out? And what do I need to get out? Because now that specific portion of this draft can go out, especially with any backing documents. This is one that I like to bring up because it's somewhat new. It's probably, it's about 3 or 4 years old, but it is one that a lot of agencies haven't really implemented yet. It has to do with domestic violence and stalking and essentially just survivors of that. What it is it's a protection for these folks because things happen at the drop of a hat. Employees fine one day, but then life changes. If for some reason, though, this employee feels as though something is going to happen, they feel unsafe, they feel as they are being stalked, something's going on, there can be protections in place. What it does is it blocks everything on here. So you're going to see they have everything blocked from birth date to their work email address, their work phone number. All of this information is going to be taken care of so that we can't have people just following them around, getting their information, where they work, what time they work, all this. In order to qualify for this, though, they do need to go through HR and essentially give a sworn statement. They have to just write it saying, I feel unsafe for this reason against this particular person, okay? Now, when that statement comes in, please realize it is not up to you as an agency to go and do an investigation. Is this person really safe? Do we have to do this? No. If they feel unsafe and they write this information in, okay, then we're going to go ahead and exert this when it comes to their information. Now, the other thing is, if they are in the address confidentiality program with the Secretary of State's office, they're also protected by this particular RCW. So all of their information can be protected. It is suggested that this is actually just announced either at new employee orientation or at least just told to your employees once a year so they know, because again, like I said, things change at the drop of a hat. You never know what someone's dealing with. So this does not only protect your employee, but it also protects their dependents, especially if the employee is a victim or if the dependent is a victim as well. So it can take care of both of them. Now, when it comes to public records requests for this information, if this comes up, it can be redacted under this, the 4256 251I. We can go ahead and put this on there unless it's a member of the media requesting it. If it's a member of the media, they receive everything, including the sworn statement. I don't know how they work that out, but just an FYI. But if it's not set up, it's definitely something that you want to get set up through HR so that they know this exists. So if you haven't been to public records training in a couple years, this is why we suggest that you do it a little more often than 4 years, because we had a case come through, Cousins versus State, and essentially it changed the way that we close public records requests now. Back in the day, we could just go ahead and say, hey, here's your records, have a good day, bye, and that was it. We could just close the letter out, we're good to go. Now, though, we have to do something very specific. We have to let them know, one, how the request was fulfilled and why we are closing it. So we're going to give them a breakup letter and let them know, hey, we sent you 4 batches of information, we sent you 1,300 pages, we're now done, okay? We cannot just say the word closed, because now closed is considered a legal phrase, which people do not understand, according to the courts. So we have to put a belt and suspenders approach to our letters and let them know, this request is now closed, meaning we will take no further action, or we believe we have done everything, or we have to let them know what the word closed means so that they understand. It has to be written in very layman's terms. We also have to let them know that they have 1 year to sue us, okay? Now, a lot of people when this came out went, ah! And, okay, those that are going to sue us, they're still going to sue us. But essentially, I've not seen a jump up in folks that are going to sue us. It has just been the same status quo, about the same numbers. But we need to let them know that they have 1 year statute of limitations once this request is closed, if they would like to go forward with that. Finally, we have to offer them time to ask questions about the records. So, I don't know what you have set up for the city here, but most places have between 14 and 30 days. What do you have?
I've been doing
30, okay. So yeah, between 14 and 30 days. We do suggest 30 days just because it took us some time to fulfill the request, so it's going to take them some time to probably go through all the records. And also with requests getting larger and larger, they're probably not going to go through thousands of records in 24 hours and be like, wait. So we have to let them know, hey, you have 30 days to ask us questions. And if they do ask questions, we are now legally required to follow up and answer said question. If we don't have an answer or we're not taking any action on it, we still have to write back to them and let them know the request is remaining closed. Okay. This is tough when it comes to people that don't have to do public records all the time, because you're going to get that gentleman, up at the dais and say, hey, I just want a copy of this. You want to help them. You don't want to go through that red tape, that bureaucracy for, we'll fill this out. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. So if for some reason you are offering that customer service and like, hey, here's a link to this, or here's the minutes, or here's that information we talked about, try and CC your public records officer. That way, if for some reason they go, whoa, this should have been flagged as a request, they can log it and then say, hey, I see that council member so-and-so sent you this information. Your request is now closed, just so that this information goes out, so this closing letter goes out. If the closing letter does not go out with these 3 things on it, it can be considered not technically closed. We actually had a lawsuit go against the AGO because of this, because we used the words administratively closed and didn't explain it. Therefore, they won against us. So it cannot be confusing in any way, must be very clear. So, as I noted earlier, PRA fees add up really quickly. So we've got, the highest was 2.6 million. That did get reduced though to 1.3 in Court of Appeals. But that was one of those, that really went south. There were a lot of issues to get to 2.6 million, so please don't think, I missed 2 pages, I'm getting to 2.6. No, it's not like that. I mean, there was a lot of issues with this particular request. The lowest that we've seen is $14 for the Office of the Governor. We can probably all cut a check for $14 if we need to. But essentially what it was just some pages were forgotten. It was a 2-part request. Public Records Officer accidentally did part 1, forgot part 2, and it was literally 2 pages for part 2. So $14, okay, we see how that happened. The other thing when it comes to fees, we just don't want the headline. As noted earlier, you know, when it comes to distrust, the public's so quick to jump on that and just like, oh, they're not doing their job. They're hiding stuff from us. They messed it up. No, they should all be recalled. Let's get them out. But that's not the story. You know, sometimes things can be missed, like here with Washington State Patrol. We're looking at that and going, oh, they did real bad. But, you know, you got to read the story and see what actually happened here. And sometimes it's actually not that. It's the judge really handing down something over something small. So there can be different things, but at the same time, we don't want that headline. We don't want that distrust. And we know the public takes about 3 seconds to form an opinion based off a headline without reading the story. As noted, when it comes to the Public Records Act, the attorney's fees are where you really get slapped. One example of this is actually Kittitas County. They had a case where the public records officer was about ready to retire, didn't handle a public records request very well, went to litigation. Attorney knew it. They walked in day 1 and said, we know we messed up. We just want to go ahead and take care of this and settle the day. Okay, $15,000. Okay, we can handle that, 15 grand. But unfortunately, the attorney's fees were 45,000. So it went from 15 to 60 in this one settlement just over that. So when those attorney's fees hit, it can double or triple things very quickly. So that's what you need to watch out for. And with that, you've made it to the end. Do you have any questions?
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Drury. I appreciate you coming over in person
Absolutely.
and sharing with us. It's always inspiring when somebody's so passionate about a topic that not everybody else is that
I know.
passionate about.
It's okay, but you made it. So.
That's good. Yes, and I saw it rain today. I know we're often quick to blame people from the wet side for bringing the rain over, but yes, you will get a pass. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Drury? Seeing none, you are off the hook, ma'am. We will open it up for the public though, because
Absolutely.
this is a workshop. We used to not allow any public comment, and then the last council group, for the sake of transparency, wanted to offer 2 minutes to each side, up to 8 minutes total, as I said in the beginning,
Yes.
for the public to speak. And so would anybody like to speak on this topic? Ms. Drury would love to answer your question, I'm sure. Okay, seeing none, thank you again for coming over in person.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Yep. Thank you. We are going to take a 5-minute recess here after all of that. We are in recess till 7:18 where we will resume. Thank you.
Contact Haley. She'd be the one.
All right, everybody, I'm still seeing 7:18. We are gonna bring this meeting back into session at 7:18, and we are gonna move on to letter B, which is a resolution, City of Pasco Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, update and adoption, and we're going to Director Sarah. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Tonight, for the presentation on our final draft of our Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, we have our consultant, Veronica Sullivan, here with us, with DKS Associates, as well as our engineering manager, Andrea Betisian. And we are bringing to you, you have heard about this plan, you have had a presentation last year about it. Now this plan is finished, yet we are presenting to you in case you have any questions, concerns, any last minute comments that we can incorporate. Our schedule has us presenting this tonight, hopefully an adoption through the resolution next week, and that will allow us to be eligible to pursue funding through some safety program that is open. It's a federal call for projects to support some of the prioritized needs that are in this plan. So the timeline works really well if everything holds. Should you have any comments or questions that need to be addressed, we'll work expeditiously to make sure those are incorporated and still hold our timeline. And with that, I would like to invite Veronica Sullivan and Andrea Petitian to the podium, and they will present this for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? All right, excellent. All right, so my name is Veronica Sullivan. I'm the consultant selected with DKS Associates. I'm joined by Andre. All right, and here is the crash data for the city of Pasco for the past 10 years. You can see from 2015 to 2024, there's been a steadily increase of the number of fatal, which are deaths, and serious injuries, crashes that result in people going to the hospital. The bottom graph there shows the number of crashes in total, showing all severities. In 2015, it was about 775, and in 2024 was almost 1,000 in 2023 as well. So you see that trend is going upwards. But I really wanted to take a moment to realize that these are, although these are just numbers on a chart, these are family members, these are residents, these are our neighbors, and we really want to get this trend line down to zero. That is why we're here today, to help save lives and help try to find some funding to improve City of Pasco streets. So the City of Pasco received a large grant to develop a comprehensive safety action plan a year ago. The goal of securing implementation grant funding to initiate these types of projects. We had a technical advisory committee that we had presented to throughout the entire project. We had the police department, Matthew Deckert and Michael Andrews, fire department, Kevin Carley, operations, Mark Trumpy, and then we had also our engineering department as well, Fida and Andre as well. They were really, really essential as part of our TAC, which is our Technical Advisory Committee, to help with the development of this plan. So just as a refresher, what is a comprehensive safety action plan? It has about 7 elements, and it's really to enhance public safety across all modes of travel for all abilities and all ages. So we looked at risk factors, perform a safety analysis, implement strategies, find out what the community wants, hear their ideas and their concerns, and then propose data-driven infrastructure and non-infrastructure programs and improvements. So in August 2025, the City of Pasco formally committed to a reduction of 50% of fatal and serious injury crashes by the year of 2035. We chose that year because it aligned really well with our comprehensive plan. That shows where we're going to be developing in the City of Pasco. So if we have that goal in mind, we can really develop the City of Pasco and our safety projects in conjunction as well. So looking at 50%, that's about 8 to 5 serious and fatal injury crashes by the year of 2035. So here's the map of fatal and serious injury crashes with the 5-year study period in the City of Pasco. You can see that there is a cluster near the Burden and Road 68 area, and also in the downtown area. The reason for the downtown area is that there's a lot more pedestrian, walking, and biking, a lot more opportunities for people to conflict with each other with the vehicles. And there's also on Road 68 and Burden, there's quite a number of traffic and a lot of different conflicting modes as well. So for public engagement, for the past year, we've been doing numerous number of activities, both in English, and we had Spanish interpreters as well. We had 4 in-person events, 2 virtual events, and we've spoken to over 444 folks. And we had a survey that also presented what types of issues they had, what types of concerns, and what types of projects they want to see in the City of Pasco. We had 46 completed, and then we had an online multilingual comment map on our public engagement tool. We had over 142 comments, that in a lot of surveys as well, to really figure out what do people want, what are their concerns, and how can we make it safer for the City of Pasco residents. And our common concerns, we observed a lot of risky behaviors, including speeding, looking at connections across Highway 182 for all modes of traffic, not just vehicles, but also pedestrians and cyclists trying to cross the north and south portion of Pasco. And some areas had inadequate pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, such as sidewalks and bike lanes, figuring out what's the best places to include those and how can we improve those gaps. And then lastly, we also think that there's a need to access for transit, just getting to the actual bus stop and also providing facilities like shelters, more platform space for people who are on wheelchairs trying to get in and off, people trying to get on their bicycle as well. So there's lots of different types of concerns, lots of different types of users we were trying to really improve for their safety. So we have shown a number of infrastructure projects and non-infrastructure projects. Here we've listed 6 infrastructure-related projects that we proposed in the plan, including access management, including such as hard turning, which is all those raised curbs to stop people from making that left turn. And then there's enhanced pedestrian crossings. It looks like a RRFB, which are rectangular rapid flashing beacons, where you push the button and it flashes when you cross. You see some of those in downtown areas as well. The infrastructure improvements at stop locations, so intersections such as we're trying to improve the visibility and also more signs as well. So doubling up the signs so the stop sign's bigger, make it more reflective at night. And then signalized intersection improvements include making the signals larger, having those yellow borders so they're improved nighttime visibility. And then lighting enhancements along 2 corridors because they're quite dark conditions and we saw some crashes that occurred in dark conditions. We thought that lighting would really help improve visibility for drivers. And then lastly, the Road 76 overpass, that is providing that essential connection between the northern portion and the southern portion of Pasco right near Road 68, just to the west of it. So those were the 6 infrastructure projects that we had wanted to propose in the plan. So for our timeline, we have been working on this diligently for the past year or so, and now we are at the completion, finalizing the comprehensive safety action plan, and then really being in alignment with that March 6, 2026 Highway Improvement Safety Program. That is the WSDOT grant cycle. It happens about once every 2 years for cities, so we're really trying to make sure we meet that deadline. We have our grant application ready to go, and if we have the comprehensive safety action plan, we can apply for this grant and multitude other grants as well. So this plan really sets us up well for future grant opportunities. Oh, yes, that's about it. We have also our website as well. You can see all of our engagement efforts on there.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan, and welcome back, and appreciate all your work on this. I mean, I saw Mr. Andre in our parks and interacting with people and putting a lot of time into this, so I really appreciate it. Does anybody from council have any questions about this, or Councilmember Perales was just a little quicker.
No, I was going to say I really appreciate it. This was a effort with staff and also with the previous iteration of the council, along with we've done a lot in regards to safety for our roads. Last year we created a new speed limit setting policy, and so this really dovetailed into that. And I remember seeing you guys at lots of events, and saw a lot of the information on the website. So no, this is great. I'm glad to see this come to a close, so we can leverage those federal dollars and make our streets safer for our community. Really applaud your guys' work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cotta.
Have you seen DUI incidences rise or decline, or how are we doing there?
Yeah, especially after COVID, we saw as a state the number of risky behaviors, including speeding and DUI. In the city of Pasco, we have particularly seen that for fatal and serious injury crashes, there were 18% of all of those fatal and serious injury crashes involved an impaired driver, 38% involved a young driver, and 60% of those involved intersections. So really trying to address those types of needs and find out where are these really serious crashes occurring and how can we address it in a systemic way. So yes, we definitely have seen that rise, and we're trying, what we can do is a lot of non-infrastructure related projects, such as working our partnerships with the police department. They have really great engagement already. If you attend the August 5th National Night Out, they do a lot of great outreach. They do a lot of coffee with cops and those kinds of programs, and really trying to educate and attend to those kind of schools to get those younger drivers understand that impairment driving is really, really risky driver behavior, and we're trying to reduce that in the future.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll open it up to the public. And I do want to say thank you for making the numbers real again, too. I know I commented on that last time, too, but it is so easy to see data and numbers and forget these are all image bearers who have parents, who have children, who, are really important to somebody. And yeah, it is more than that. So thanks again for your work on this. It's super important. With that, would anybody from the public like to comment on this, for or against this action plan? taking comments on this action plan, for or against, going once? Yes, ma'am, come right on up, thank you. Yes, please, because, yeah, we do want the people listening online to be able to hear you also. Since it's a workshop, yep, it's 2 minutes, but please go ahead.
Thank you, Lori Thompson, Pasco. I support this plan wholeheartedly, and I'm happy to hear that the grant application is ready to go because the deadline's just right, like almost yesterday. So, I live right next to a very dangerous intersection, and I don't know, I guess it's maybe been a couple months ago now that a pedestrian was struck there in that intersection. We've had multiple crashes in that intersection, one just Saturday again, and it has multiple factors of why that is such a busy intersection for mishaps, but the primary one being, and this is across the entire Tri-Cities areas, people go too fast. I'm guilty. And anyway, I appreciate you get right on it, and I appreciate all the work you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Really appreciate your comments. Anybody else? Going twice? Going 3 times? Okay, well, thanks again for coming, Ms. Sullivan. Thank you, Andre, for all your work and support on this. Really, really appreciated. We will move on to letter D. This is, letter C, regional lift station and private pressurized systems. And this is also Director Sarah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. And if you thought that the original training was not engaging, this may be even harder topic. All right, so we're going to be talking about sewage. And how do we handle sewage in the city? And that is all the water and other things that come out of your toilet, your shower, your kitchen sink, right? And is sent towards our sewer system and then into the treatment plant to be cleaned before that water can be disposed of and onto the river, meeting, of course, all the limits that are allowable for such. So, what we're going to cover today is a quick overview of how gravity sewer works, how lift stations work, how pressurized systems in general work, and when are those applied. Then we'll look once more. We've done this with rates quite a bit, but we'll look once more at what our sewer system looks like for City of Pasco and what regulations apply. We'll talk about what are options for wastewater infrastructure for development, and then a comparison between cost of different options, reliability, long-term responsibility for maintenance, and so on. And ultimately, this is an overview of sewage management so that we can have, hopefully, between all of you, you can have a discussion on some of the policy decisions that may need to take place to guide the work ahead. All right, we're gonna jump right into it. Okay, so why is this topic important? Well, it's important because as the city grows, so does our infrastructure to serve that development. And there are areas that are harder to sewer than others. So areas where we need to pump that wastewater leaving a house or business onto the system that the city owns and maintains. And how can we do that? Well, there's different options, and we'll get there. So the infrastructure choices that we make really impact our quality of life. It impacts, the environment, our health. Sewer is one of the critical things, along with water, I would say. Potable water and sewer are 2 critical things for health and well-being, and the health of our community is very important. So providing those 2, when one of those 2 is not available, it's really felt. And ultimately, as we talked, long-term maintenance obligations, the burden onto ratepayers for those things. And then, of course, the budgets for both ours and each of our community members. All right. So gravity sewer is the golden standard. If we can make gravity sewer work, gravity never stops working because there are no pumps associated with it, hopefully, unless we have bigger problems and gravity stops working, right? So gravity is the ideal situation where the wastewater just flows downhill, so to speak. And so this is a great image that shows how the different types of buildings are being served with sewer. That sewer goes from services to manholes or mains, and then from there onto bigger mains are called trunk mains, and so on, all the way until they reach your wastewater treatment plant, and then that wastewater is treated so that it can be disposed of. All right. This is the best option, and it's the cheapest option available. All right. But sometimes that doesn't work. So when gravity is not an option because we have an area that is lower than the surrounding area, we use pressurized systems. The typical pressurized system we see in cities are regional lift stations. And so there is a pump station that lifts wastewater, so ultimately we call it lift stations, that are placed in the lowest spot within a low spot that is surrounded by higher elevation systems. And so you're seeing in the screen, again, another beautiful image of how houses and businesses are being served by a system that is partially gravity sewer, right? There's services and then mains, and those mains lead to a very low point where our lift station is, and that lift station picks it up and sends it over the hill so that it can reach the rest of the infrastructure that is gravity type. In this case, you're seeing 2 lift stations in series, right? Which is pretty much how City of Pasco system works, but that is a sneak peek of what's coming. And ultimately, again, the system reaches the wastewater treatment plant, and the wastewater can be disposed. Okay, so what is important about regional lift stations? Regional lift stations are typically planned to serve a basin or an area and serves more than a single parcel. The cost for that lift station is typically shared amongst the people that are being served, or even the overall ratepayer, the volume of all ratepayers, so to speak. These systems are owned and operated by your district, your city. In City of Pasco, it's City of Pasco. And they are designed to be permanent. They are designed to meet the regulations of Department of Ecology criteria for sewage design. And what that means is that we have very strict regulations on how those lift stations function, how they need to function even when there are things failing surrounding them, from power to pumps breaking to having additional flow than your typical flow, and so on. And we'll get more into the details of that. So it follows really stringent regulations, and as you're seeing in that orange box on the side, there's typically a wet well, there's redundant pumps, there is backup power, and they're professionally maintained and operated, and they're constantly monitored. So we have alarm systems and so on. All right, so these lift stations are pretty typical in traditional sewer systems. All right, one more step. So then next on is talking about individual, private, low-pressure systems. And that is an individual parcel being served by a grinder pump, for example, where you have the house, a service. That house sits lower than the surrounding infrastructure for sewer. A grinder pump is a grinder pump that is owned by the private owner. It's a private pump. It pumps that wastewater that, again, comes from toilets and sinks and all that, and it lifts that wastewater from that house onto the public system that exists in the roadway, that is higher up than where the service was, right? We cannot make it flow naturally, we have to push it up. Okay, these systems are affordable. They are individual, in this case, as we're showing it. Both the pump and the force main that carries that pressurized wastewater are private, in this case, as shown. And the maintenance and operation of that small pump is the responsibility of the property owner. The performance of that system is really dependent on the maintenance and the monitoring that is being done. And you are seeing, I may be able to point here. Whoops, sorry, that was a lot there. So you're seeing the grinder pump, right? And this is where the property line is. So you have the force main that is private, and then this is the public system, which is typically a gravity system. Okay. I'll go one more step. Okay, then is the shared private low pressure systems. So these are systems where there are a series of houses, in this case there's 4 in the picture, a series of houses that sit lower on the public infrastructure. They need to have their sewage pumped so that they can reach the public system. But in this case, each grinder pump pumps into a force main, and that force main leads to another pipe there that is still owned by all those property owners. It's a shared system. And only after that they reach the public main. Okay? So a little bit different from the previous example, because in the previous example, if the pump and the force main fail in any way, the pump fails, the force main is blocked, there is the one property owner responsible for maintenance is the one impacted by that failure. Sorry, really hard to speak. If in shared systems, the failure of the force main, for example, a blockage in that force main may impact more than the single resident that was the cause for that blockage. Okay, so typically shared systems end up being owned by an HOA. Well, an HOA exists. And the performance, again, is dependent on that maintenance and monitoring that's being done by the HOA or the group of property owners. All right, so far, so good. Yes, okay. Again, it's a kind of dry topic, but... All right, so now that we've talked about the different types of or ways to handle sewer, we're going to compare the pressurized systems amongst each other. We're living away apart from this table. Gravity, we all know gravity is the best option. It's cheaper, it doesn't stop working, doesn't need backup power, it's great. But we're going to compare all the pressurized systems. So we have regional lift stations, individual private pressurized systems, and the shared pressurized systems that are also private. Okay, so as far as cost, a regional lift station is more expensive. It costs more money to build a lift station. It also serves more people. It is more expensive, but it is a superior product in the fact that it's tied to specific regulations and provides redundancy and so on. Individual private pressurized systems are less expensive than lift stations. Still, they're more expensive than sharing that cost among different property owners, which would be your last column there, your shared private pressurized systems, where you only have one force main, potentially one grinder pump, or maybe several grinder pumps, but still only one force main. As far as reliability and risk, as we said, regional lift stations are held to ecology standards, so they have built-in redundancy, they have monitoring and alarms, SCADA system, we can control what levels are, there's alarms. The people maintaining them and operating them are on call, so this is a 24/7 checking for whether they're functioning or not, or if there is an alarm. They are maintained regularly. There is, O&M costs that we build into our rates to make sure that we are checking on a regular schedule how to maintain those systems in operation. Again, they serve lots of people at once, and there is emergency response lined up at all times. So let me tell you about those regulations from ecology for the systems, because I think we all know it's more expensive, but what are we buying when we're buying something more expensive? So lift stations are to be designed to have firm capacity, and that means that your lift station should be able to carry the demand in wastewater even when your biggest pump is out of service. That means that you have not just the one pump, you typically have two, but typically, actually, you have three. You have one sitting in reserve so that when one of those pumps that you had running, your biggest one of all, goes down, you can still push sewer uphill from that lift station. You need emergency power, like we saw in the other slide. And the system itself, by its own depth, manholes along the way, the wet well, and so on, provide additional capacity where when there is a failure, you have enough time from the alarm to the time that you are able to respond to accumulate sewer that you're unable to pump. If there were to be a catastrophic failure where everything goes down and you cannot push wastewater uphill, you still have capacity where you can back up that sewer and hold it without entering people's residences. That probably, those two things, the firm capacity and the ability to have additional capacity built into the system that gives you time. You're buying time at this point, right? You're sending a crew out, you're getting people to respond, and you're going to probably set up a bypass for that so that you don't get into people's houses with sewer. This is raw sewage that you don't want to get in contact with, and I cannot make that clearer. I will not be more explicit though. That's just it. So those two things are probably the biggest difference when it comes to what you are buying and why it costs more money. You are buying that redundancy. You're buying the additional capacity, right? The grinder pumps, when you have a blockage in the main or your grinder pump stops pumping, the amount of capacity you have to store sewage before you have a backup into your home is minimal. Even if you have an alarm set up on it, and there's typically a little red light that blinks in your basement, right? It's like there is not enough time to respond before you have a backup. So again, when we have an individual system that is pressurized, you may have a backup, but that backup only affects the one person, and it's the one person that maybe defers some maintenance or was unable to get somebody lined up to do maintenance on time, or catastrophic failure that wasn't their fault. Maybe they don't have backup power, so the pump stops working, and then it backs up. In a shared system, the same scenario happens, and you have more than one person impacted. You likely have a series of houses impacted, probably one first and then others onward, depending on what their elevations are. The risk that comes with that is what happens when that occurs and there is an HOA and there is a health risk associated with it. And what happens if the HOA is not there anymore? So all those things are kind of like planting the seed for the policy discussion that comes later. The ownership, as we said, regional lift stations are public, private, individual systems are privately owned, shared, private systems are private, but they're shared. And which of the systems are currently allowed in City of Pasco? Well, regional lift stations are typical, those are allowed, and typically it's a capital project or a project performed via development with some upsizing agreement where we build something that is regional, because they are time consuming, and because we keep them up to date in maintenance, we have people dedicated to doing that work. So we want to have the least amount of regional lift stations, so the lift station should be able to serve the biggest area possible that needs to be served via pressurized systems. Individual private pressurized systems are allowed in City of Pasco, and that is probably one of the biggest misconceptions. So we allowed grinder pumps to exist in City of Pasco, and those grinder pumps need to be served by a private pressurized pipe after it. That's a force main, okay? And those are allowed. Are they allowed in every single subdivision? No, they're allowed when the conditions warrant using them. And that means, as we'll see in some slides in the future, in the next couple of clicks here, what it means is there's a place for those, and they're a great solution when there is no other solution available. Now, shared pressurized systems are currently not allowed at City of Pasco. But there is an interest from local developments, and actually I would argue statewide, for furthering the use of those shared pressurized systems. There was a bill in the Senate this year that talked about this, that talked about responsibilities and liabilities, and how to charge for when you have to respond up to an emergency. And so this is an item that is top of mind, and so it's important that we start discussing it so that we can have clear direction on how to move forward. All right. So 2 of the 3 are allowed in Pasco. The third one, the share one, is not. All right. So now I'll do this very quick because we've done this a couple of times. We're going to talk about what sewer looks like at City of Pasco. The sewer system is the city has oversight through the state of Washington, where Department of Ecology oversees our management of sewage. We have a permit with Ecology for discharge. We also have a comprehensive plan, a sewer system plan, that tells us how are we going to serve people as development occurs. And it basically lays out all the capital improvement needed, all the maintenance need, all the staffing needs, and so on for the system to be effective and well managed and maintain quality in our river water and our groundwater. All right. So the components, as we've talked, is mostly gravity sewer with 17 lift stations, several miles of force mains, and then we have a small number in the tens of lots served by private individual pressurized systems. Again, so they're allowed, but their use is really reserved for those cases where they're absolutely needed, because ultimately they are not as reliable as public infrastructure serving those houses. All right. In this picture, it's super hard to see, and I apologize. There's 17 lift stations shown in this map. They're shown in green. They're hard to see. We'll move on to the next one, and you'll see what those basins are. So we have multicolor layout of what the basins are. And I'll work my way backwards. So if I work from the river upwards, so uphill, which is the opposite of how sewer works, all our wastewater enters our wastewater treatment plant via 2 lift stations. That's 9th and Washington and Maitland. So you're seeing in the background color a blue color, a cyan color on one side of the city, and a green color on the other side of the city. Now, within those 2 major basins, there are small spots, regional spots, that need to be served by a lift station within that bigger lift station area. So I'm working my way upwards and further away from the river. So a great example here is that red area that you're seeing on the northwest portion of the city, which is served by a lift station in the Palish subdivision. I cannot remember the name, but it's a Broadmoor West lift station for us. So that is a regional lift station. It was built in coordination with the developer. At the time they developed, the system was built so that it could be expandable. And it has a big area that it serves well more than just the subdivision that was building it. And the same is true further north, where you see the orange color, right? You have orange and orange. There are 2 segments. One is Derigold, the other one is residential and commercial development between 68 north of Burns. Those 2 areas are served by the Glade lift station, one of the newest lift stations we've built. And then throughout the city, you'll see other lift stations with smaller or bigger areas, depending on where you are. You have Pink on one side, that's Calotus lift station. And then you have some other ones in the Riverview area and so on. Okay, I explained a lot in this slide. Are we still all walking with me? Okay, awesome. Okay, so our system plan, as I said, this map comes from that system plan, explains how we expand sewer system to serve, in general terms, our expansion area. And of course, you're seeing all the proposed lift stations for the future, along with the ones that exist, and our gravity system mainly showing where those trunk lines will be, or what trunk lines need to be replaced, upsized, in order to continue to serve adequately the new demands. Okay, and now we're going to focus on the Riverview. Yes?
Question. Yeah, actually, I have a question. Can you go back to that page, or
Yes.
that other slide? So kind of like in those donut hole areas, around there, we don't have a lot of we don't have any trunk lines in some.
Correct. There is, so the Riverview area, and we'll go right there in the next slide, as
Okay.
you just saw a little glimpse there. If we focus on the Riverview area, which is a mix of donut hole and so UGA expansion area and city, within city limits, we have, the Riverview area is basically a bowl. So it's like there is a upper area close to the river, and then there is a low, and then it goes back up towards the northern edge, so Argent, so on. So that is a low spot. Those areas need to be served with some kind of pressurized system so that the wastewater that is generated in those areas can be pushed up and out onto a gravity system that is existing. What you're seeing in the screen here is what our sewer com plan has shown for a long time. Is 2 big basins served with 2 lift stations, one on the east, one on the west, and the 2 different colors, the green and the blue, show what the areas to be served would look like. Now, in the recent past, I would say maybe 2018 or 19, maybe 2020, there was a project that accomplished building one of those lift stations, but the service area was determined to be smaller at the time. It was a policy decision made at the time where that lift station was built to serve only the yellow area that you're seeing in the screen. So not the green, but the yellow. And there were some site conditions that triggered that. There was some difficulty with shallow groundwater and some other things that triggered that. So what we have now is we still have a big area that is not sewered. There are houses in some locations there. There's some areas that are developed, some are underdeveloped, some are not developed at all within this green and blue area. Some of those houses are currently being served by private systems that are not pressurized, so that would be a septic system. The city has no oversight on septic. Septic is handled through the district, so that is a Benton Franklin Health District. But should more dense development occur there, those septic systems are really conditioned. You can't really have many septic systems in small lots. So if we were to sewer these areas, we would need some pressurized systems to serve them. So this was the original proposal. That's not what got implemented with the yellow area. So what we're looking at is something more like this, where there are 4 lift stations instead of 2. They're all slightly smaller than what they would have been if they were only 2. Again, one of those 4 is built. It's the Road 52 on Pearl lift station. It's the East Riverview lift station. And then there would be one proposed on Road 60, Road 68, and Road 84. Okay, so those are all the ones that you're seeing there. And what you're seeing with the different colors is the area we would be able to serve, with some assumptions on how deep those lift stations are going to be. What are the main trunk lines that need to be built in order to bring all that sewer onto the regional lift station, and then the force mains that would push that wastewater out. The lift stations are, again, placed in the lowest spot within that basin. So each of those are really planned to be in the lowest spot. All right, and we've explored this. We've been exploring this alternative for several years now. We have done estimates on how much those cost, how much would it cost for each parcel if they were to develop, but all those calculations are tied to how much density are we going to have in this area, and whether it makes sense, the big investment, and does it make it prohibitive once you build a lift station and have a cost per unit at that point to connect, and is this prohibited? Okay, so the current regulation, and this is I'm almost to the end, so just bear with me. As we said, if gravity works, gravity is your golden standard. You want that, it's easy, nobody argues about gravity sewer. We all want that, there is no confusion there. Our second option is regional lift stations, because they are planned and adopted within our adopted plan. And that is consistent with what Department of Ecology has seen as advisable for managing systems, so that ultimately each resident and business owner has the adequate health and safety that is needed, and that we maintain the environmental health of our region, right? So we want to make sure that we're not contaminating the groundwater, we're not contaminating the river, and we're not having spills out in the open. All right. Individual pressurized systems, as we said, they're allowed, and they exist in Pasco. We have a couple of examples in the next slide, and then shared private systems are not allowed at this time. So this is an example. This is the City of Pasco example. Has grinder pumps for each lot. These were, I believe, 6 lots, maybe a little more. each lot, there were, as you can see at the bottom of the screen right here, you can see why this few lots need to be pressurized, because they're sitting way lower than where the sewer was, which is up here. There was no way to push that sewer upwards other than with grinder pumps. Each lot has a grinder pump. Each lot has a force main that comes all the way to where the public system is. And so each of them remains responsible for the maintenance and operation of that system. Each house is. And therefore, when one of them fail, there's only the single owner being impacted. And this is not the only example. As I said, there's like in the tens of lots approved by that. In some cases, this is probably one of the most extreme one, where most of the subdivision needed to be served by grinder pumps. In typical cases, most of the subdivision is gravity, and then you have one or two lots that are just too low, and you just cannot regrade them to make them work. So in those cases, that is a reasonable proposal, and they get approved. Okay, so what are other cities doing? I figured that may be a question. So within our region, Kennewick has allowed grinder pumps in the past, and onward, their position is that they would disallow grinder pumps regardless of cost. So if sewer, gravity sewer is available, and that may mean that it's going into gravity to then go into a lift station, then that is the preferred option. Prosser allows them, but they will not take on-end responsibilities from it. They will not respond. So it's all left onto the HOA for ownership and maintenance. I think that is it's a real option. I do warn you all that when there is sewage entering people's houses or backyards, there's a lot of pressure to respond because people can get really sick. This is, again, sewage. And then West Richland has probably the most permissive of all regulations related to grinder pumps, where they are allowed, shared systems are allowed, and this is consistent with their comprehensive plan, which, as you see, it's very old. So I believe they're working on their new plan, and potentially there may be changes there coming. We don't know that, so we're not going to speak for them. All right, so what are the topics that we hope this super interesting presentation sparks on you? And I'm being facetious, I know this is a hard topic to discuss. Where does the responsibility end, and is there responsibility to respond when we have private systems? Who maintains the system? What happens when it fails? Is it okay that there is a health risk and we're not responding? Emergency response coordination, right? What happens when it fails and maybe the property owner is not there, the HOA is not responsive? Like, is there an interest in having the city respond and maybe pursue being paid back? What happens when the system is shared and we are responding and we cannot identify who was the cause of the blockage, of the failure, and then it's really hard to pursue repayment for that cost? Who is protecting our ratepayers from this additional cost? Are we okay with a lower standard for sewer systems? And basically, when asked, maybe consider being more flexible for shared systems, understanding that those are far below the standards of ecology for a regional lift station. I think I covered all the things in that list. So it's food for thought, and hopefully you have a discussion and we can glean some direction from it. If not, we can bring this item back, give you some time to digest this information and circle back. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sarah. Questions from council? Councilmember Cotta.
Are people on private systems, are they paying less in sewer fees?
No, they're not. Their sewage actually connects to the public system. Okay, so except for people on septic who do not pay to the city because they're not using any of our public infrastructure. Okay, so people on individual private systems are paying their sewage rates, and they pay to connect, because those payments are associated with the maintenance of the system overall, including the wastewater treatment plant, the staff to, for example, respond to an issue in the main that they are served off of. The only portion they do not cover is the city doesn't cover maintenance and responsibility for response and everything, is that private system. So it's that grinder pump, their service, and that connection to the main. For all other ratepayers, they're also responsible for the distance between their house and the main. That service line is private all the way to the main. So when there is a blockage in their service, that is the private owner's responsibility. So this is basically the same, where instead of being just a service that grows, that works gravity-wise, it actually involves also a pump and a smaller pipe that pushes, that has that flow being pushed through it.
Awesome, thank you. Councilmember Perales.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think first off, I was ready to know, I would like to know how the city of Prosser is dealing with any emergency situations, and, you know, if they are coordinating with HOAs or have a memorandum of understanding or CCNRs. I mean, I think that would be good to kind of review and see how they would go about it so that we can formulate a policy. I guess I've been looking at this issue for some time now with grinder pumps and sewer, and so I guess I would like for us to look into shared pressurized systems to see what can work in that area, because I think the issue in the Riverview area is that, I mean, no one's really pulled the trigger to help pay for these lift stations. You know, we're going to pay for it, we'll get money back, but I mean, when was that last lift station done over kind of more on the east side of the Riverview area?
I believe it was 2020. Jeff, was it 2020? It was 2020. It was COVID work, was it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just concerned because, you know, we're going to be talking about homes in a little bit, and we have a lot of this infill area, and so I think we should provide developers and builders a policy that they can put to use as long as they check all the boxes. We're also looking at a different policy here in a little bit. You know, perhaps people can utilize septic in those areas and stuff, but I think all the possibilities should be on the table. And as long as we can look at other cities within their framework and figure out how they're doing it. But it all comes down to, again, you know, like you were saying, maintenance. And when sewage is backing up, they're going to be calling somebody up, and how do we navigate that? And so I'd be kind of curious to see how the city of Prosser is doing it, perhaps how the city of Kennewick's doing it. It looks like they've discontinued that, but I think there's some things that we can do here in lieu of putting in regional lift stations. Again, I think it just comes down to cost. I mean, but then again, who are the big builders around here? You know, who's building the most homes? We got Hayden Homes, we got ProMade Homes. I mean, DR Horning. I mean, can we get these people in a room and ask them, are you looking in this area? Or, you know, are you guys going to be hooking up with some people who have tons of land they're going to build? Because that's when we can kind of know. And then perhaps from our perspective, we could, we probably should just put a regional lift station in. But when we don't know these things, you know, people come in and they want to do piecemeal projects, 6 or 7, 10 homes. Then it's good to do that. But at the same time, why do that? And then a year later, someone wants to build 300 homes, and then all of a sudden we're doing that lift station. So I think there's a lot of things, but I think everything should be on the table to let these developers do what they do, and that's build. So that would be my 2 cents. Because if not, then essentially we just have like a de facto moratorium in that area by not allowing some of these other things to kind of take place. So I think there's a lot here. This is probably due for another one, in my opinion, probably another. After getting some more information, another workshop. So that'd be my recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Perales. I have some similar comments and a couple of questions. Director Sarah, all the way up at the top where it gets to the recommendation here, I just was hoping just if you could hone in on the plan, a solution that exists or is planned in the sewer system plan. That third paragraph, and I could just read it real quick. Staff recommends that city continue to be discerning in its use of private pressure where a regional sewer solution exists or is planned in the sewer system plan. And so that's a specific plan, I guess, just making sure that developers, as Councilmember Perales said, would know that we have a specified plan and, that they can access that and see that and they're not just kind of hanging in limbo and all that.
Yes, happy to address that. The plan is public and it is posted, and when we receive applications or even earlier than an application interest in an area, we provide that information. Actually, is CED that does that. But we work really closely. Public Works and CED are good partners in supporting people with infrastructure. And so this is known. I think, as I heard from Councilmember Perales, I think the real barrier is who's the first one to put money right into this infrastructure, and is it enough development happening to really support that infrastructure and not have that investment be sitting for a long time. A great example of that functioning adequately was, for example, the LID, the East UGA LID, where a lift station was built, but all development was kind of happening all at once. So it was very clear that not only the need was there and that the plan was adequate to serve everybody, and it supported densities that were planned for that area, it also that there was an immediate benefit for everybody. And so there was that commitment to invest. In other areas where the work happens in more isolated spurs, it's harder to do that first infrastructure investment. And again, supported by the sufficient density, the cost per unit is actually maybe similar to a grinder pump and a force main, right? It's like $5,000 or $6,000. I'm hoping that maybe some of the developers in the room can nod to that number. But again, it requires a number of units to be served in order for that price to become that for a regional lift station with all the added benefits. Right.
Okay, no, and I appreciate all that. And I know we've kind of delineated before the kind of the Riverview area. As you said, in my mind, I was actually just thinking about popcorn. You know, it just pops up a little bit here and there. And I understand, yeah, that's a significant investment when we don't understand, like you said, it's happening all at once. So I appreciate that differentiation. And then, yeah, I guess the last sentence there I would probably agree with. Similarly, where a gravity sewer system is feasible, pressurized systems should not be used. I mean, like you said, that makes sense. I do have a couple of other questions I jotted during that. I guess my first question is I typed in taking a flush for granted. And, you know, I think this is one of those things. I appreciate this presentation because we do. We turn on a faucet, expect it to drain, or we flush and it all goes away, kind of like our garbage getting picked up every Monday. So thank you for the work. It's something we take for granted, but I know it gets really rough when things backed up or whatever. So, no, really, really important. And, you know, I think there does have to be a balance here. Really, I appreciate Councilmember Peralez's points where, you know, maybe there are some areas, and I would like some more information too, where kind of a neighborhood or an HOA, kind of a group station might be the best. But at the same point, I think, you know, we have a constituent that comes here on a very regular basis, talks about her water pressure in her trailer park. And, you know, and even though we've went there and I feel we've been, you know, really reasonable and done everything we can to say, hey, this is not the city. You know, there's some people who question that still falls on us at some point. And if we're just talking about, I'm not trying to minimize what she's going on because obviously it's affected her grateful or a whole bunch, and I want to be sensitive to that. But at the same time, I can differentiate that between, you know, people having raw sewage, as you were talking about, backing up into their homes, and though it may not be the city's responsibility, if there's a cluster of homes on that, they are going to feel that we have some form of liability or I guess just a responsibility to fix that problem when it may not be ours. So yes, I agree with Councilmember Prowse. It would be nice to continue this discussion again, have more information because yeah, there is kind of a lot at stake here. Yeah. So thank you for everything. Anybody have anything else? Councilmember Figueroa.
Just speaking on, because I know that there's also the Senate bill here that it's also explained here. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, right, the city says we're going to disallow grinder pumps and all that stuff, but then this bill passes. Are we going to have to readjust that?
So the bill is now inactive. It did not make the cut. It was still active when we wrote the report, so I apologize for the confusion there. It may be an item that comes back. And the bill really refers to the language is something like cities will not be able to disallow grinder pumps. And there are some discussions about recouping costs when you respond to it from a public agency working on a private system, provided that you can identify who the responsible party is for the failure or the damage to the system or the lack of maintenance or whatever be the case. The bill also provided a series of conditions where grinder pumps should be considered, basically. And those were quite broad, potentially not specific enough, where maybe the description could have also applied for lift stations. And that was in part what most of the comment or the testimony that the legislature received was related to that vagueness on those conditions and the eliminating that discerning ability for the city or the district, if it was a sewer district, to determine where that use is applicable and the best solution versus maybe a regional system where it's still public. So that's pretty much where that went, and it went to committees and this and that, and there were testimony sessions and some work from lobbyists, and eventually it didn't pass out of the Senate, so it didn't get to the House, and in this session it will not be discussed, but it's likely that it will continue to show up in new sessions. Did I answer all your questions? Okay.
Oh, yeah, appreciate that.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Campos.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. The reality is I mean, there's just so much information we need to figure out. It's kind of where I think we're at. You had said that Kennewick originally had started with okaying grinder pumps, and now they said no. Maybe learning like what caused that decision as well, to really make this. I mean, I think it comes down to, although we're talking about this topic, it really does go into also public safety. And we definitely don't want to get into some deep raw sewage and do something wrong. And so I just kind of, maybe the question that I want to ask is, okay, let's say we do this shared and we leave that open. Is there any liability that we can ever get saying, okay, the city allowed for this?
Well, if the bill were to pass, the liability component was explicitly removed from districts and cities. That portion had been clarified at the request of some of the lobbyists that were involved in providing testimony. The reality is that that's still a little bit of an open item, and it's one of the items to discuss here is liability for backups and overflows. Right? It's like at which point there is a duty to respond because life and safety are endangered.
Right.
And is that the utility's responsibility? And if so, is that cost recoverable? Or are the rest of the ratepayers just asked to serve and basically include that in their rates and not? You know, it's like a cheaper solution at the beginning may cost a lot more money to people that didn't make that choice.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the concern. And the other concern is, okay, let's say that they do take responsibility, whether it's an individual or shared, but maybe they're just not fast enough. Like, I think we have to look at that too. I just think there's just so much more to discuss, and I think we just want to make sure that we get it right. And so I appreciate, what Leo says as well, is like, let's just get information from others and kind of make that best decision that way, because it is a topic that I think we have to get it right for the public safety. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, back to Councilman Figueroa, of course.
And yeah, just to kind of as a point of clarification, you did mention that these private systems aren't approved by the Department of Ecology standards, correct?
Department of Ecology encourages regional lift station because they're mostly cost effective and have all the redundancy requirements. The ecology will not come and say, oh, you can't install this. They will likely ask about what are your plans for emergency response when a system fails, a system that maybe wasn't planned for you to take care of, but it's ultimately contaminating groundwater or it is endangering, health for those residents that are, or business owners that are being served in that manner.
Okay, thank you. Not seeing any more lights. Opening this up to the public. Would anybody in the chamber like to speak on this topic? Going once, going twice, not seeing anybody coming forward. Thank you, Director Sarah. We are going to move on. This is letter D, Land Capacity Analysis, LCA, Comprehensive Plan Update Briefing, and it is Ms. Matson's turn. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Another fun topic for the group. If you can make it through tonight, then kudos to you. We've got lots of heavy topics on the agenda for you. So switching gears a little bit here, and this is related to the land capacity analysis for the city of Pasco. So we're looking at a citywide issue here. And this, of course, relates to the comprehensive plan. And this is the plan that we are actively working on this year. And it's looking ahead in Pasco for the next 20 years. And it's called the periodic update. And this is one of the required steps of the comprehensive plan. It usually is the kickoff item. And it is arguably the most difficult politically and technical. I guess it's difficult politically, and the information is dense. So what I'm going to do is walk you through the requirements of the land capacity analysis. I'll just get to the punchline now so that you're not on the edge of your seat. There are going to be 4 policy questions I'm going to ask the group at the end once I show my work here, related to where we'd like to put additional apartment units in Pasco. So the short of it is the state requires a certain amount of units for the city to grow by in 20 years. And in that range of units, we do need to address all different types of income levels. So the short of it is Pasco is short by affordable units, 80% area medium income and less, and that's typically apartment units, ADUs, studios. And Pasco, as you may be aware, has its fair share of single-family homes. If you just look around, you can just see that's the dominant use in Pasco. So we are short by 4,000 apartment units in Pasco, and we need to demonstrate to the state that our zoning can accommodate those 4,000 units. Whether it's built or not is up to the market. It's an unfunded mandate, so we are not required to go build these apartments ourselves. The state hasn't yet required cities to mandate affordable housing levels. They may in the future. It just seems like we're going that way, but they're not doing it this year. So we as a policy group need to decide where we open up the zoning a little more to allow denser units. And so I'll give you 4 options. And just based on what I know from the State Council and the Planning Commission, we came forward with 4 options that we felt would be the easiest landing for this group and for Pasco as a city. So we're not suggesting that we raise the density levels across the city or put apartments in traditional single-family neighborhoods. We're advocating at the staff and consultant level that we increase density where multifamily is already allowed, and then we increase density in commercial zones where multifamily is allowed above the first floor, and then potentially allow more density using more middle housing. And then the 4th option, which was Planning Commission's least favorite option, I discussed this with them last week, was to expand mixed-use zoning in targeted areas. So that will be the question at the end. I'm just going to quickly go through and show you the work. If I'm going too fast, let me know. I feel that going through how we get to these numbers is important, just to show our work, and then I'll never show it to you again, or it'll be in the plan. So stop me if I'm going too fast. This is the existing land use throughout the city, and it's color coded based on different uses throughout the area. You can see that services area kind of in the center to the right, that's the airport. And then you have the green areas, agriculture. Those are areas that are largely not developed. And then you have the yellow areas, which are residential, so it's color coded. So this is the existing land use in Pasco. It doesn't necessarily match with our zoning. This is just showing a live picture of what's going on in Pasco today. And then this is a breakdown of the different uses. So mostly residential, 30% of our city is residential, and then we have 22% undeveloped. Agriculture in the north end of the city, shown in green, which makes sense. Those were areas that were the last to be annexed into town. On the CED tour last week, I showed you that map we have downstairs showing different areas coming to town at different times. And then the other is distributed, the other pieces are distributed between services, transportation, recreation, and so forth. And these were the future land uses identified in the 2018 plan, which generally lines up with our current land use map, showing industrial lands over there east of the airport, and then the remaining city is predominantly yellow for residential uses, and then those red colors you can see that follow the interchange and arterial corridors. That's generally commercial uses. And I've said this in several presentations. You'll have it memorized by the end of the year, I hope, or sooner. Our future population estimate, and this is for the Pasco City and urban growth area, is 121,000 people. Currently, Pasco and its UGA has about 85,000 people, so that figures a little more than the OFM populations for city limits, which is around 83,000 right now. And we are required to accommodate 18,831 new housing units in the next 20 years. And this time around, emergency housing is also included in that, which is day shelters or emergency night shelter beds. And we just have to provide zoning that allows for it. We don't have to build it ourselves because there's no money from the state to do that. And here's the analysis. We have to demonstrate to the state, basically we need to show them how full is the glass, which is our city, how much water is in the glass, and then how much more water we can fit, and make sure that the glass is big enough to fit the additional water the state's pouring into our glass. So it's just a math problem at this point. We just say, here's what's in the city, here's what we have room for, and oh, we do have room for those units, state, or oh, we don't, and here's what we're doing to change it. And the last option the state would like us to consider is growing the city boundaries. I get that question a lot. If we need more room, why can't we just keep expanding north? Well, the state would like to, per the Growth Management Act, consolidate transportation, sewer, which Director Sarah just talked about, and then consolidate uses. It's better for the environment if you have more compact cities. You don't have people driving 30 minutes to get a gallon of milk and going, all over the place to get their things. The idea is that you have a certain area where you can get you can flush your toilet, you can go to the grocery store, you can do everything within the city. So that's the Growth Management Act in a nutshell. And we go through this method here where we evaluate the current land and we calculate what we can fit in the land. And then another layer this year is the income levels, which I discussed. And so we designate the land into these categories. What's developable, what's vacant, what can be developable, what is underdeveloped. Underdeveloped, I guess the best example would be like a 5-acre farm with one house on it. That's underdeveloped, is from a land capacity standpoint. It can fit a lot more houses or a corner store, etc. And this map just shows undevelopable parcels, so they're exempt for various reasons. The airport, you don't want to put houses on an airport runway. There's some properties you just can't develop with houses, and so the dark blue is shown on the map. The rest of it is developable, shown in white. And then these are different colors showing vacant and underdeveloped parcels. So the orange is showing parcels that can be developed more, and then it's color coded by other underutilized uses. But the white areas are fairly utilized in Pasco, which makes sense because those white areas are pretty well developed in town. And then, so don't worry about these numbers. It's just basically going through and calculating our buildable acres. And this is a slide showing the developable acres in the residential zones. And then this one shows the developable acres parsed out by zone for the Broadmoor area, and then the housing capacity for each zone. So the zones listed on the left-hand side are the zones in Pasco, residential zones, and then this shows the dwelling units per acre that those zones can fit currently. And it does match up pretty closely to what the zones allow for, which is something we do look at when we change density to make sure that it can actually fit. And then we add on the affordable component. And these AMIs, area median income for Pasco, are tied to specific units. It's not an exact match, but in general, low AMI, 0 to 80%. So ranging from people who do not have permanent housing, homeless population, to 80% AMI, which ranges based on your household size. Generally, in that income range, you can afford mid-rise multifamily or low-rise multifamily apartment units, or stacked flats, or ADUs, or possibly small cottage housing. So we are low in those categories there, and that is in the results. This table is basically saying citywide, we do have enough room to accommodate all the units, but the types is where we're off a bit by the new numbers. So we are short by, let's see here, 4,000 units in the 80% to zero range. And then we have sufficient units. We have a surplus in the moderate density, and then more of a surplus in the low density. So this is just basically explaining what I gave away at the beginning. We have enough single family homes and we don't have enough apartments, is what this slide is saying. And this is our population growth target to get us to 121,000 people, our existing population. This is the people per household on average in Pasco, so 3.22, a little higher than I think other cities. And then we do have additional population capacity citywide. And then with jobs, I'll just barely touch on this. We have enough room in the city for jobs. We have plenty of industrial area. We are going to look at those numbers a little closer to see if maybe we could justify some slight increases in the industrial land area. We did lose, I believe, 200 acres of industrial land to the Heritage Brochi project. There was a rezone a few years ago. A few of you might remember down in the industrial area. So we would like to make up for at least that area that was lost to industrial, so we can provide more, job capacity for the community. But overall, we're looking pretty good. I think we could justify more. And we have a topic coming up in March to talk about economic development in Pasco, which should be pretty fun for the group. It'll be very lighthearted, I promise. Just kind of what you'd like to see in Pasco. So how to address the housing shortage, and you already know the questions I'm going to ask here. So I'll just go through to keep it organized, the 4 options. You can certainly add more if you would like to put apartments anywhere else in Pasco or have any other ideas. Go ahead and suggest those. These are the 4 ideas that staff and the consultant came up with based on what we've sort of read into based on my previous presentations related to the comprehensive plan update to council last year and to Planning Commission. I'm doing sort of a check between both groups on these bigger questions. I'll always check with Planning Commission and Council first, so that when you guys get this at the end of the year, you won't be shocked and say, where did this approach come from? So we'll do lots of check-ins throughout the year. And I'll give you the options, and I'll let you know what Planning Commission said, and then let you give me feedback. So we'll go through the 4. First option is to put these extra 4,000 units or apartment units. First option is to increase density where multifamily is already allowed. And this means adjusting density assumptions in the mixed use and R4 zones. The modeling showed, and another spoiler alert, not one of these options will solve the deficit. We need to combine at least 2, maybe 3 options, and we can do a little bit of both. So you can't just pick one, sorry. So this one would adjust density assumptions in the mixed use and R4 zones. And the modeling shows that this would gain an extra 970 additional units, and this concentrates growth where infrastructure and expectations already exist. So I'm going to pause and get your feedback, unless you want me to read the other 3 options really quick too, or do you want to just let's
if you
talk
want
about
to just
this.
complete, then we
Okay,
can.
so
Thank
second
you.
option is to allow more missing middle housing. And the first option, I'll note, Planning Commission was most favorable with the first option. They felt like that was kind of the easiest idea to digest, and they felt that the community would be more amenable to that. Second option is to allow more missing middle housing. And I'll preface it that by saying the state will require that every residential zone in Pasco allow 4 to 6 units per lot of middle housing by the end of the year. That'll be implemented next year. So that's a pretty heavy statement, heavy topic. We are still looking at ways to exempt Riverview area, just because I figured council will be asking that question when we do talk about middle housing. It does not appear that there's a lot of safe havens for the Riverview area. One of them is actually, funny enough, the sewer situation. So sewer availability isn't ripe in that area, then we'll see less middle housing. But every single lot, there's no more single family zoning in the state. There's a deficit of 300,000 units statewide, and the state's solution to this is requiring that all cities allow all middle housing types, duplexes, triplexes, cottage housing, stack flats, ADUs in every zone, in every city, on every lot. So one of the options to accommodate this downfall is to allow more middle housing, so maybe 4 to 8 units, 4 to 10. The Planning Commission wasn't excited about this idea. They said if we did do it, it needs to be strategic. And the word they used was gentle. Gently, introduce middle housing maybe in areas where it makes more sense. So I would say not in the Riverview area, not up it in that. So they wanted staff to look at ways where we can incorporate this, but in a gentle way. That was the words they used. The third option is increase height in commercial mixed use areas. And I believe all of these are up on the screen. Increase height in commercial and mixed use areas. So this sort of plays into option one, where this is more of a theoretical paperwork exercise in my opinion, but it meets the mark. So we just need to show the state we have capacity. I don't actually think increasing the height in commercial zones will result in more people building. No one has come to the department and said, man, if you could just allow a 100-foot building, I'd be there building it right now and putting those sprinkler systems in and elevators and all of those expensive things and fitting parking, who knows where. I don't really actually think that's a realistic option, but it could buy us more units as far as this paperwork exercise. And if we're super short on units in 5 years when we do our check-in, maybe we reevaluate. Fourth option is to expand mixed-use zoning in target areas. So that would be looking at the zones and areas where we already have mixed-use commercial and bumping it out. So that would mean it would take over either more commercial, allowing residential to replace commercial, or it would bump out into single family and allow more multifamily. So happy to repeat those again if you'd like, or just you can give your general input at this point. This is an ongoing conversation. What I'm likely going to do is take your input and just start getting to work with the consultants, and then probably have another check-in in a few months once we fine-tune it more, just to make sure you guys are okay with it before you see the final product at the end of the year.
Thank you, Ms. Mattson. Questions, comments from council? Councilmember Perales.
Appreciate it. I would encourage the council, if they didn't, probably watch the planning commission meeting. It was really insightful. We have some really heady people on that commission, and so it's a good hour discussion. They went over all those options, and I essentially agreed with a lot of them, a lot of the comments that I heard. So we have individuals who understand the pulse of our community and kind of things that we want. So I really don't have too much to say. Maybe come back with more comments, but as of right now, what I gathered from the discussion was option one, kind of revising the density limits in those locations, put more density where it makes sense. Option two that I saw that I kind of gathered was increasing residential opportunity within mixed use commercial zones, but like where it makes sense. Don't put commercial mixed use like over in Desert Plateau. That really doesn't fit that. So make it easier for the downtown community in the Broadmoor area where we're already doing that stuff. And the word I looked at I liked was blended. So if we're going to do missing middle housing in certain areas, maybe in the review area, at least a blending, like a transition. I don't feel like they're against increasing density over there, but at the same time, it should make sense. And then they weren't really in favor of just doing like a blanket rezoning of everywhere. That's kind of what I gathered. Things should be targeted, and we should look into what infrastructure we have in certain locations across the city. So, but again, I pretty much agree with everything they recommended.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Milne.
Thank you, Mayor. It doesn't happen that often, but I would say I agree wholeheartedly with the Planning Commission on this one. I think it came to a good conclusion. I will watch it. It sounds like it's something I should have watched already, but I will watch it. And just out of curiosity, man, maybe you don't have the answer, but does the state actually think that more people are going to be flocking here when we constantly talk about taxes and taxes? I mean, I was just in Idaho today, and it's $2.79 for gas, and it was for something. I mean, it's good to say that this is what we have to do, but I mean, I just don't understand the state's projection when they're just talking income tax and tax. I just can't imagine so many people flocking to the state of Washington when that's all our Olympia ever talks about. I know that's not really a question. I'm just making more of a statement that it's hard to get to this conclusion that we have to have so many more people when it just seems like you have certain people leaving, at least that have a lot of money, or at least have talked about leaving. So just a statement, but I appreciate your presentation. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I agree with the two of you. The couple comments I typed in here makes sense to keep similar densities as close together as possible. Yeah, and I agree with number one, increased density where higher density is already allowed does make sense. But I understand, Ms. Mattson, it's we got to come at this from a few different angles and everything like that. And I just want to tell you, I really appreciate you being sensitive to, I think Councilmember Perales used a good word there, the pulse of Pasco, or I wrote, the culture and just kind of the livelihood, just the makeup of this community. And I think it's something really good for the community to hear, because oftentimes I read comments online or I hear comments and they are super frustrated with the growth. And I don't think a lot of people understand that this is all mandated from the state, that the state is a constitution. We are just but a charter. Really, everything we do, I mean, we found out in that speed limit discussion, they even have certain parameters where we can raise and lower our speed limit. And so we are really at kind of at the mercy of the state in so many ways. Our only power we have here, even as elected members of a council, is what the state gives us. And this is just unfortunately just one of the worst examples of that, where we can't keep our pulse of our community or the culture of our community, that the state kind of mandates how we do all that. And as you said, doesn't fund any of those mandates either, which kind of I appreciate. It buys us some time to kind of protect the culture and mitigate that as much as possible. But I know this is very frustrating to a lot of members of the public that think we're growing too fast, or there's too many people coming in and all that. And it comes back to the state imposing their will upon us. And yes, since I've been elected, it's just one of the most frustrating things for me. So again, thank you for your work on this, Ms. Manson. Thank you for being sensitive to the needs of Pasco. I think in the short time you've been here, it's probably the best thing you've done is really to find that pulse of Pasco and what's really important to us, in trying to kind of mitigate some of these things coming down as much as possible. So thank you. Councilmember Campos.
Yeah, just real quick. Do appreciate you giving some suggestions of what we could do with it. Just to give you some feedback, I agree with the Planning Commission. I was on the Planning Commission when we raised or we increased the height limits, and it was cool to see the apartments pop up to meet that. I think it was the first one was like Argent and 68. And so I would, just to give you some feedback, I would be in favor of 1 and 3. 2, I agree with Planning Commission. We have to make sure, look at making that we do it right. I don't like 4 at all. So I would be 1, 3 good, 2 be very careful, and then 4 no. That's just my feedback.
Thank you. Seeing no more lights, let's move this to the public. Would anybody like to speak on this issue? Ms. Thompson, come right on up. Please turn the light back on there. Thank you, ma'am.
Lori Thompson, Pasco. I know that this is a given, but when we talk about bunching density with density, we need to consider our traffic infrastructure. We already have a big problem at the 68 and Burden area. We don't have any new on-ramps and off-ramps to the freeway out there. And so I'd just like to keep that in mind, please.
Appreciate that, Ms. Thompson. And know that me personally, I'm working really hard on that. And I think the others can attest to that. Yes, I've taken some real personal responsibility of trying to alleviate that and fix that out there. But yep, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else like to speak on this issue? For, against, going once, going twice, not seeing anybody coming forward. Thank you, everybody. We are going to move on to letter E, water rights history and code clarification. And this is you, Ms. Sigdell. Good evening. Again.
Evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Continuing the heady topics that we're talking about today, would like to give you a little bit of an introduction on water rights, since few of you are new. And also going back to a discussion that we had about 2 years ago, some need for code clarification so we can provide good and predictable guidance to our developers. So what is water rights? It is a legal authorization to use public water. So people see Columbia River and other rivers that flow through our community. Just because they flow through does not mean that we get to use the water willy-nilly. So we need to have proper authorization from the state. And many landowners also, or just water rights, you can just own it. And water rights is a little bit different in terms of when you own a piece of property, you might have a deed, and you own that piece of property. If you own a piece of water right, the paper might tell you that you have X amount of acre feet of water rights. However, you also have to show that you've been using it, and there are certain criteria that the state dictates, and you have to be able to prove that. So if I had a piece of water right deed that said I have 100 acre feet of water right, I would have to go through the process with Department of Ecology, and I would have to show them that I've been using that 100 acre feet on a regular basis. If I was not using that, and I was using a lesser amount, let's say 50 acre feet, then they would say, no, you actually now have 50 acre feet. So it's a little bit different. It's a property, but it's a property based on continual use. It is an incredibly important resource, as we all know, and our economic development and growth really relies on how much water rights we have overall as a city, because we need to be able to serve the community that we're building. A little bit of a Pasco history. In the early 2000s, you will hear when Director Sarah is talking about water rights, something called the Quad City Water Rights Acquisition. It includes West Richland, Kennewick, and Pasco. And essentially, it allowed for a certain amount of water rights from the state for these 4 cities. In 2002, all developments required water rights or in lieu fees in the city of Pasco. In 2006, to encourage commercial and industrial development, we exempted commercial and industrial developments from providing water rights. So that's something that we did at that time as a policy. In 2018, and you will see all of these action items in the staff report. In 2018, there was a staff report to council that talked about how our fees were not adequate, and these exemptions, while they were very useful in increasing our commercial and industrial base, were really not sustainable for the city because we were drawing down on our water rights bank very quickly. In 2023-2024 time frame, we finally got to increasing the water rights fees. Essentially, if you come in for a development, but you do not have water rights associated with that land, then you would pay the city an in lieu fee, and the city would then go out and buy the water right to serve that development. So we increased that from $1,725 to $4,150 per acre feet. And then there would be a 50% surcharge if you already had a water right in that land and had moved it. So water rights you can move around. There's 1,000 different types of water rights, but most water rights you can move around to different properties. So we, per Department of Ecology, measure how much water rights we use on a very regular basis. Water is water, but again, I said there's 1,000 different types of water rights. We have 4 major types. One is just the Columbia River surface water, and that is where we do most of our drinking water, our potable water. System B is just groundwater, where we pump out from our wells. System C is 50814 groundwater, which is a very specific area north of the city, where it's a basin that the ecology has determined. And then water rights that we own essentially as landowners in our reuse facility, the spray fields. As you can see here, between the use and our authorization, there's some areas where we're exceeding the authorization, and that's a risk, which is within our System C. How we're trying to manage that is we're working with Department of Ecology to assert essentially the fact that we're a municipal agency. So maybe being able to utilize some of the existing cases, case laws, to make all of our water rights a little bit more flexible. So we're working with them on that, and they've been very collaborative and helpful in that process. We're hoping by the end of this year we'll be able to get to some solutions. The second thing is ongoing acquisition effort. We've delayed this a little bit because we've been talking about water fees, services fees, and we needed to ensure that we had some money available to be able to go out there and buy that. So we're restarting that effort now. As I mentioned earlier, in 2023, we increased our in lieu fees, essentially our water rights fees, to 4,150 acre feet. We removed the commercial and industrial exemptions because that was something that we would not be able to sustain it. A really good example of that is a really high water user like Dairy Gold. They were good partners with us and they transferred the water rights to the city, but they did not have to do that. And so we would not be able to continue to afford making those kinds of exemptions with the water right bank that we had as a city. And also, the 50% surcharge for if the rights were removed from the property, it looked back to the last 10 years. And essentially, if you had removed the water rights from the land in the last 10 years, then you would be charged 50% additional. In 2024, there was a council subcommittee that was formed, and we did more outreach to developers. And the change that happened via that conversation was essentially that we removed the look-back provision of the 10 years and basically said as of the passage of that ordinance. So if anybody moved the water rights as of November of 2023, whatever that date was, forward, then you knowingly are moving water right away from a land that you're planning to develop, and so we're adding a surcharge so that we're discouraging developers from doing that. The reason for that is that water is a very precious resource. It is only going to increase in value in future. And if we can buy it, a lot of the offers that we get are for leases. And as a municipal agency that is going to be here forever, a lease only lasts for so long. And so we have to, owning the water right is pretty key for us, unless there's some very specific scenarios where leasing makes sense. And council added that we needed to evaluate fees every 2 years. And we need to explore water conservation programs. And a key thing for clarification today is grandfathering all completed preliminary plats. So essentially any projects that were in progress. I will kind of bring back to something that is recent that you were discussing, which is connection fees. When we're talking about the increase in water and sewer connection fees, we discussed what about projects that are currently active? Exact same conversation happening with water rights about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We, however, and that is a mistake on my part, did not codify this. So the discussions that we had was grandfathering the fee, so $1,725 per acre feet versus the new fee, which was $4,150 per acre feet. There's other provisions in that ordinance that are important to think about, which is what about commercial and industrial exemption, right? That's a big piece. And also, what about the 50% surcharge? So I'm bringing this back to council, number one, to ensure that we're codifying these discussions for this topic and moving forward, and providing predictable fees for our developers, but also making sure that I'm getting all of the discussions accurate. I know there's few of you who were there before, but we've done a lot in the last 2-3 years, and so I'm asking for you to go back into your memory bank. Is there anything very important for people who are here that I missed in this discussion and the history so far? Let me start there.
Thank you. Councilmember Perales, you and I were on the subcommittee. We should at least kick this off. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I had to get my memory jogged a little bit, and I'm glad they provided the date of the meeting and the timestamp. So, yeah, no, I would be in favor of grandfathering residential preliminary plat applications during that time. I would not do it for commercial industrial, just because they use a lot more water. So that would be my preference. And again, in regards to 50% surcharge, I mean, do we have any applications that are sitting out there from that time for commercial and industrial?
I do not believe we have anything major for commercial and industrial.
Okay. But after 2023 December, if they were to sell their water rights to that land, they would be charged 50%.
Yes.
So I guess I wouldn't really be in favor of grandfathering that portion. It sounds like we already have that worked out. So if we need to codify the grandfathering of the preliminary plat applications, I'd be in favor of that.
For just the fee part.
Just for the fee part.
Just for the fee part, okay.
And I guess, yeah, just looking down, I appreciate the notes on the previous side there. Just kind of going over these, some of the talking points that came out of our subcommittee meetings. We had outreach to developers. I see some of the community here who, felt like we didn't do the best job, or that they weren't heard or had a meaningful seat. And so I think it's important to continue including them. And yes, the 50% surcharge never felt right. It felt like kind of moving the goalposts, is I think what we heard and what it kind of felt to us. And so that I do remember really clearly, that kind of we were like, no, we're not going back before the December 2023 meeting, but after December 2023, that is our firm line, and anything past that, yes, would get the 50% surcharge. And obviously it's up to this council to decide that, but yeah, that was what I clearly remember going through there. And see, I know we talked about evaluating fees every 2 years. I honestly thought we moved that to 3 years, but because 2 years, or maybe it was every year.
We just punted it.
Okay. Okay.
We waited 2 years and then
Oh, very good.
there was no change.
And then the next one, which of course you championed a lot, xeriscaping and those kind of stuff, looking for conservation programs. And I guess this is the one, I appreciate you sending me some YouTube videos. I did watch a couple of them today, trying to refresh my memory, but unfortunately my forgetter is working a lot better than my memory. And I honestly cannot remember where we left that. But hoping, I know we need to solve this soon, but I want to go back and dig into this a little bit more. As far as I, was searching through notes, watching some of our previous council meetings, I felt like this was looking through an old photo album or something like that, kind of jogging my memory to all of it. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'd like to dig in more to see about the grandfathering. I'm not opposed to that, but I'd really like to see where we left that for sure. And then, yeah, the 50% surcharge, definitely not going back 10 years. I mean, we're basically, putting things on people on their past decisions at that point. That didn't seem fair at all. But yes, that firm line in the sand, anything past that December of 2023 would incur that 50% surcharge. So, current council, any questions or thoughts about this before we turn over to the public, who I think there's some people in the audience that would like to speak about this? Councilmember Figueroa.
So just to clarify, as a lot of this is pretty heavy, and so the grandfathering rate would be the 1725, and that would be just for the residential, if I'm understanding Councilmember Perales. So what would that be for commercial and industrial?
Maybe you, or maybe the deputy city manager.
If I can answer, essentially, if there was a commercial or an industrial development, the exemption is more that they would not have to pay anything at all. So if there was a commercial or an industrial development in the city of Pasco prior to 2023, even if they required water rights, because we serve everybody and everybody needs water, they did not have to come to the table with any water rights. And so you're not just talking about a $1,700 rate, you're talking about a $0 rate.
And would you
that
say that one
does that
more
answer?
time, Reach,
Yes.
if you would, please?
In 2006, City of Pasco, to encourage economic development, incentivized commercial and industrial development. For commercial and industrial development, they would not have to provide water rights. And so up until 2023, there was no provision to provide water rights, either that comes with the land, so the water right, actual water right, or an in lieu fee for commercial and industrial development.
Okay, thank you. Did you have something to add, Councilmember Brown?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I mean, it sounds like we don't have any applications from that time, so to me, it just doesn't really make any sense to even consider grandfathering that. And honestly, we would be in a deficit for some, like, a thing like Dairy Gold. You know, that would be a major blow. So, no, I think we can just pretty much stick to residential. But if there's anything that legal would need to provide us, just so that we're not getting in trouble. But if there's no applications, that I'm not really concerned about grandfathering them in, or any of those developments prior to 2023.
Thank you. Councilman Figueroa?
And then again, ask
Yeah, of course.
question of clarification. So then, when we're talking about the residential exemption, that'd be all residential, regardless if there's water rights in that property or not.
I think it's where they're at in the process too. Probably the deputy city manager might have the best answer.
If you had a completed a preliminary plat application at that time in January of 2024, then essentially you would be paying an older fee. If you're a residential preliminary plat, you'd be paying the $1,725 fee. Let's say that you are moving, it's a much cheaper fee. You can sell that water right out in the market for maybe a lot more. And so if somebody moves that water right, so they can just pay that in lieu fees, right? But let's say there's already a water right in the land. If they move that water right, then now they're getting the 50% surcharge. Because what I'm hearing is you're not going to grandfather that surcharge.
The 50% surcharge?
Yes.
Yeah, I think at 2023, I mean, that was kind of just my understanding when we left that yeah, anything before that, people are not paying it if they moved it prior to that
Yeah.
December of 2023. I mean, that was that was my understanding too.
Everything
but-
after 2023 was assessed 4150 and a surcharge if they
Exactly.
sold it.
After, yeah, like you said, December of 2023 or January of 24, wherever that firm line was. Yeah,
And
exactly.
So yeah, I would, because we removed the exemptions for commercial and industrial, but I would say we're not applying that at all. We're not applying any old rates for that because honestly, it sounds like there's no application. So in my opinion, we don't have to worry about it.
For just commercial and industrial, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
So there'd be no grandfathering for commercial and industrial. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And for residential, only grandfathering the fees. But if they're moving water rights from the land, we would still charge. So let me read a bullet
Please, yeah,
from
no.
I apologize. I want to make sure that we get this right.
Absolutely.
And there's people waiting on this, so I want to make
Yep.
sure that they have opportunity to get a clear view. Clarification needed on whether council intended to grandfather all aspects, including commercial and residential exemptions, which you said no, and the 50% surcharge. For example, a grandfathered preliminary plat, if the property had water rights in the past, is the developer exempt from the 50% surcharge? In other words, will the developer pay the grandfathered rate, which is $1,725, or the surcharged rate of $2,587, right? So essentially, there's a 50% surcharge on the old rate. And we anticipate that there will be few scenarios on the residential preliminary plats where there's already water right associated with the land and they're grandfathered at the lower fee. If they move the water right, because financially it makes sense, are we charging them a 50% surcharge?
I would say if they sold them after December of 2023, then yes.
Okay, that
That would be it. I mean, if, yeah, that's where that surcharge would.
Yeah, and
kick in.
that was my
But
understanding.
if they haven't sold anything, you know, they're gonna pay the in lieu fee. They would just pay the in lieu fee of 17.
Yeah, that was their firm line in
Right.
the sand there, whatever, yep. So why don't we do this? Let's hear from the audience now, and then you guys, we can discuss this more afterwards, but it would be good, I think, to let the chamber weigh in. So we'll open it up for public comment. I mean, this is a workshop, so it's only a couple minutes for four people, 8 minutes, supposed to be 2 opposed to 4, and we'll just kind of see how it goes.
Good evening, Council. Peter Harpster, Harpster Land Development, here this evening representing Big Sky Developers, the owner of one of the few projects on Burns Road that these changes impact. Our ask this evening is specific to the fee, and that you would work towards codification of grandfathering the plats that were already approved before the changes that were voted on in late 2023. So essentially, what's already been spoken to this evening. I did send an email to council late last week and wanted to correct a mistake I put in there that this project is 189 lots. It's actually 250, so a little bit more. Just wanted to clarify that in case one of you wants to see the plat that staff has and you see the difference in numbers. I'm not trying to pull anything, just made a mistake on there. Yeah, I've been coordinating with Ms. Sigdell on this, and as we're getting near the end of this project, it's not finished yet, but we will final plat the final phase this year. Start getting estimates on water rights fees, and that was kind of where the topic came up. And she did mention that she recalled those conversations that were had a couple years ago, but that nothing was codified. So appreciate the presentation and the time on that. There's other notes I had that I don't know that are worth sharing. It sounds like things are being maybe remembered correctly, so to speak. I will say, projects like this, we initially applied for it in February 2022, so it was approximately 2 years before these changes, and I happened to be at that council meeting in late 23, and it was something that there was plenty of time for the public to get involved, but it was sort of out of the blue. There wasn't like months of preparation. So by the time that it happened, we're already into entitlements, have engineering plans approved, and we're in construction. So that's our ask, and thank you guys for your time and consideration.
Cool, thank you, Mr. Harpster.
Peter, can I ask you a question? Real quick, sir. So your understanding in this case, you would only be charged the 1725.
That's my understanding.
That's right. Okay, that's my understanding based on some of the things
Okay.
that I know. So.
Sounds good, thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this issue?
Mayor.
Sorry.
If I might say, I apologize if I'm muddying the waters, but water rights is a heavy topic.
It's a terrible pun, by the way.
If the water right is moved from the land, there is a surcharge. And so that's another step that we have to think about. And so it depends on whether the developer, the land that they're developing already has a water right. And so even if they're grandfathered, let's say they move that water right away from that land, then there's a 50% surcharge.
That would be my understanding, because that was what remember some of that, because obviously the mentality that was going into that is they could perhaps sell it on the market at a higher rate. I specifically remember this discussion, and then come back and buy it from the city at a lower rate, which is really just affecting the taxpayers at that point. So yeah, I would definitely be.
So even with preliminary plats that were grandfathered, if the developer moved the water right away from the land, the charge for them would not be $1,700. It would be $1,700 times 1.5.
Correct.
Okay.
but if it was after that firm
Yes.
line in the sand of late
Absolutely.
23, yeah, early 24. That's exactly how I understood it. Yep.
Thank you. I want to make sure that we're very clear on it, so when we come back, we have a good codification of this understanding.
Okay. Yeah, no, I feel comfortable with that. Yep. Yeah, because that was our big concern, that somebody could just, kind of make money on the private market and come back. And then that puts a burden on the city to continue expecting us to come up with water that, as you pointed out earlier, is just going to be harder and harder to come up with. Would anybody else, we're still in public comment part of this. I'd be happy to entertain anybody else speaking to this. Yep. Step right on up, sir. Right up to the microphone here, please. Name and city of residence, please.
Jeff Kelly, and my address is 1802 Road 76. My comments are related to water rights. It's not your 1725 versus 4150. But earlier this evening, I sent an email to Councilmember Leo Perales to share with all of you. It contains information regarding some recent issues I'm dealing with at a subdivision known as Wernet Ridge. The issue I want to bring to your attention tonight is the city's current demand that I pay for additional water rights fees for the Wernet Ridge plat due to the construction of duplexes. My attorney, Mark Fickus, contested these fees early last year, and the issue seemed resolved. In January of this year, nearly 10 months after the city's initial request, the city contacted me again and is demanding that these fees be paid. City staff is now withholding certificates of occupancy for several duplexes that I have completed. This means I am currently unable to sell them or rent them out. To date, the city has issued around 16 permits for the duplexes that I'm building. No mention of any fees for added water rights are listed anywhere on the permit invoices. 100% of the fees for these permits have been paid in full. 5 of these duplexes have now been completed and sold. Requesting these added fees now is no different than if I told a customer that their final invoice had been paid in full. Then several months later, I discovered that I forgot to include a bill, so I contact them to ask for more money. It would obviously be unacceptable to do that. The situation is no different. The city obviously did not think about the situation that added water rights fees may be needed if duplexes were built on single-family lots. This is their mistake. It's not fair for me to fix it by paying these retroactive fees.
Okay, and I appreciate that. For whatever reason, maybe I missed that email. Oh, okay, perfect. So yes, we'd be happy to look at that and take that into consideration and hear. It's honestly the first I've heard of it, I can tell you, but obviously we have a lot more to discuss on this topic. So I really appreciate you coming forward and bringing that and developing here in Pasco. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. Anybody else? This is a total of 8 minutes we're allowed. It's kind of 2 for, 2 against. And does anybody want to speak, I guess, for this in a way? Or this is kind of tough to tell who's for and against. So not seeing anybody. We'll take 2 more comments for 2 minutes. Just want to make sure everybody has equal time to speak. Thank you.
Dwayne Howard. I'm part of Wernet Ridge with Jeff. And I was here like 2 years ago, I think, when the water rights deal came up, which I think has been brought up tonight. And we came in with the same thing because we had already started developing. Our plot was already recorded. And at that time, we were told that we weren't going to have to pay that extra fees that were grandfathered in. And as Jeff brought up, a year later, we're getting bills after we were told we weren't going to be. And I think that's the point of this and it looks like there's some gray area in this that is getting rehashed because I was part of all that stuff about 3 years ago. But I'm hoping that everybody sees that anything that was recorded, during that 24 or before, that it should really be grandfathered in.
Okay, no, and I appreciate you. I mean, you were here for all those meetings too, Dwayne. I appreciate your involvement and
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take one more comment on this issue. Again, this is just a workshop, not a regular meeting, but we'll take one more 2-minute comment on this topic if anybody would like to come forward and speak. Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll close the public comment on this. Council, any more thoughts? Councilmember Figueroa.
Trying to process all of this information and take everything into account. I think kind of going back to what some of the council members have said and hearing some of the public out here. I mean, 2023 was 3 years ago, and here we are. So I think it would be unfair to try to hold some people accountable to some of those things that, you know, a lot of us weren't here in this council to make those decisions, and also accept fault or where there was mistakes happening on behalf of the city. Hey, we didn't see this coming. I think that's fair to say. But I think that line drawn in the sand of December 2023 should be kept, and that surcharge should be increased at that point. And anything that happened before that, they should be grandfathered in. It seems that a lot of these developers did their due diligence and their math equations and everything else, and so it would be unfair to slap them with this part. So that would just be my sentiments on this issue. But I think that, yeah, just kind of thinking on the top of my head right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Cotta.
Yeah, I don't hear anything that would make me disagree with all the logic that's been discussed, and it sounds like there's pretty clear alignment among everyone. So I would endorse the the policy we've laid forth as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else who hasn't spoken up here tonight? Because this is one of the things where staff is really looking for direction for us. Anybody else? Ms. Sigdell, feel like you have enough, or?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, cool. Let's move on. Very good. Great discussion, everyone. Moving on, I will need my glasses. Letter F, Ordinance Emergency Comprehensive Plan Amendment, School District Capital Facilities Plan. And Ms. Mattson, we're back to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So this is one of 2 emergency comprehensive plan amendments that are coming forward to Council for a decision next week, and tonight is the workshop for both items. They are referred to as emergency comprehensive plan amendments. Due to the timing of this, Pasco Municipal Code prohibits comprehensive plan amendments during the periodic update cycle, which we're in the midst of. So they are referred to as emergencies because the city has deemed them important enough to bypass the periodic cycle and amend the comprehensive plan this year, knowing that we're going to update it at the end of next year. So if these updates go through, we will incorporate it into the current comprehensive plan update and revise as needed and point out any changes that are needed at the end of the year. So that's why they're called emergencies. The first one is the amendment to the capital facilities plan for the Pasco School District. This one is just a routine plan that's updated every 2 years by the school district itself. So this is fairly routine. The other one is not so routine. This one happens every 2 years. It happens to fall on the cycle where we don't take comprehensive plan amendments, so we took it through the emergency process. So this is straightforward, and here is the process for emergency comprehensive plan amendments. And we did meet all the noticing procedures, held a public hearing with the Planning Commission, and now we're taking it to City Council for final approval. This should look familiar because it's in front of all of you. It was not included in the packet, unfortunately. You have a hard copy that was provided. This is the capital facilities plan, and no need to take it home and read it tonight for homework. I will just cover briefly what the plan says for you. Sorry, I've had quite a bit of presentations tonight. Let's see if I can find my notes here. So just briefly, this is the 2025 capital facilities plan for the school district, and it's a public document. It's been out since last year. It went to the school board. So this is attached to the ordinance, and just some trends I wanted to touch on. The current enrollment as of October 2024 last year was just over 18,000 students. The projected enrollment for the district is just under 20,000 students. The anticipated growth is approximately 1,420 additional students over the next 6 years. And this growth is projected across the elementary, middle school, and high school grade spans. Current capacity for the different school levels is listed in the plan for elementary, high school, and middle school. There is more enrollment in middle school, which I'll touch on. So recently funded projects that were approved by the school district were the 2 new high schools that were recently opened up in Pasco. So that's very exciting. That was Sageview High School that provides just over 2,000 student capacity, and then the Orion High School that is less, about just under 600 capacity. Total investment on those schools was about $246 million, and these projects significantly address the existing high school overcrowding and provide future growth capacity. And then there are some future identified needs within the capital facilities plan, and that relates to a new middle school. And that would be replacement expansion of McLaughlin Middle School and replacement and expansion of Livingston, Markham, conversion to K-8, McGee, and Captain Gray, and additional land acquisition. So these are identified needs for the school district to grow in order to accommodate all of this growth we're receiving in Pasco that's projected. So the financing strategy is listed in there, and this is where it results in school impact fees. Typically, the school impact fees are adopted at the same time as this plan. Pasco adopted the school impact fees last year in June, and that was, we were able to do that through the interlocal agreement with the school district. So this plan will match up with the school impact fees that were adopted last year. The single family fee for schools is $0, and the multifamily fee for school impact fee is $2,595. And these fees are owed when development comes through. New development, they pay this fee, and the school can only collect fees based on state law, and it has to be tied to the specific growth needs, so that middle school development. And they can't just take fees from the development community to address existing deficiencies. It has to go specifically to growth paying for growth. So there's a lot of laws, and there's related to this at the state level. And so the key policy considerations for the plan in front of you is enrollment growth remains steady and long-term. High school capacity is being addressed in 2025, which was last year. Middle school capacity is the primary near-term need, and then future bond elections will be necessary to fund identified projects. Impact fees remain an important but limited growth management tool. So there's some highlights of the plan on the screen, and then some changes to the impact fees. So I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions that the group has.
Any questions from council? I guess I have one point of clarification I think the public would want to hear. I heard you say, building, which is of course bonds down the road and everything. I imagine the public will want to know if this has any relation to the levy that we just saw voted on in the last month.
Sure. So I'll just read, and this is from the school attorney. They weren't able to make it tonight, probably due to the large agenda. So they said if there was questions I couldn't answer, they're happy to help at the decision meeting. But from their attorney and the school district reps, effective levies and bonds. Levies fund operations, not capital construction. Therefore, whether a levy passes or fails does not affect impact fee calculations. Impact fees cannot be the sole funding source for capital projects. The capital facilities plan relies on a combination of bond funding and impact fees. If a bond were to fail in 1 year, the district could reassess and seek voter approval in future election and still use impact fees collected in the interim.
Thank you. I think that's super important to clarify for the public. And just as far as the impact fees and everything, so really, we're in a sense just codifying what we decided last year, correct? As far as taking the residences to 0 and the multifamily down, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, that's already in code. We already codified the fee structure.
Yep.
It's a little out of order. Definitely not illegal how we did it. It is just unique. And I believe the reasoning behind it to be transparent was to offset some of the traffic impact fees coming so that developers could maybe pay a little less here, a little more there, and balance it out. And we were allowed to do that through the interlocal agreement with the school district administratively. Ideally, this plan would have backed up that fee at the time, but since it was in the works that year, we felt that going that route was appropriate, and then addressing this immediately after would have probably been the more sound approach. The reason we couldn't is because when you take a comprehensive plan amendment through, you have to take it through together with the other one. So this was sort of held down by the one that I'm going to talk about next. So
Okay.
you can't just every year at the state, if you're going to, revise the comprehensive plan, you can't do it in a piecemeal fashion. So this was slowed down by the other topic because that one was way more policy heavy. So in an ideal situation, both would have been adopted at the same time. The timing didn't quite work out, but again, legally sound, it's been run by legal.
Okay.
So the fees are in code. They were implemented in June last year around the same time as the TIF program fees.
Okay. No, and I really appreciate that expanded explanation too. I think, the public really likes to hear those things and understand them too. Anybody from council have any questions for Ms. Mattson? Seeing none, let's move this to the audience. Anybody in the chamber like to speak on this issue? Going once, going twice. Seeing no one coming forward, we will move on. Thank you. Right back to you, Ms. Mattson, for letter G, Emergency Low Density Residential Land Use Comprehensive Plan Amendment and RS20 rezone.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is the second emergency comprehensive plan amendment, and I explained what an emergency comprehensive plan amendment was for the last item, so I will skip that for this. And we have a history that's shown on the screen of the different issues. And to summarize, in 2023, the City Council updated the low density residential designation citywide from 2 to 5 dwelling units per acre to 3 to 6 dwelling units per acre. And it might be easier to show on the map here. So the yellow area in town, this is our land use map that coincides with our comprehensive plan. So all the yellow areas down in Riverview, all the way to the north, that designates the residential areas in the city. And so in 2023, the City Council took more of a progressive approach with density and changed it citywide from 2 to 5 units per dwelling acre to 3 to 6. So the dwelling units were raised citywide. What didn't occur was revisions to the RS20 zone, which is shown on the screen, these arrows pointing to these light yellow areas, if you will. Those are the RS20 zoning designation. So when the change happened citywide, 3 to 6, the RS20 zone allows for 2 units per acre, so it was outside of that range. So 2 units is less than 3, which was the minimum citywide. So it created a conflict, and I believe there was a few applications processed in 24, maybe the beginning of 25, and then, this issue was vetted through legal, and it was decided there's a conflict between your comprehensive plan and the RS20 zone, so it needs to be fixed. So this is the fix to the issue, and what staff is proposing, what the Planning Commission has recommended is that the land use designation for the RS20 zone only, not anywhere else in the city, be revised to 2 to 5 units per acre. That's the global comprehensive plan designation for this zone. And then for the RS20 zone, change it from 2 units per acre to allow 2 to 3 units per acre. So this is allowing slightly more density than what the RS20 zone allowed for before, but it was in conflict with the overall plan. So it's allowing for 1 more unit per acre. Staff had originally proposed 2 to 5 units per acre as the zoning, and that felt like too much density for the Planning Commission. So they asked staff to revise it to 2 to 3, and that's what they're recommending to the City Council tonight. And so with this change, it's 3 different land use actions, which makes this kind of fun. That's why the packet's so long. One of them is a comprehensive plan amendment, which changes these light yellow areas from 3 to 6 units per acre to 2 to 5 units per acre. The second action is a rezone, changing these yellow areas from RS20 to RS15. And RS15 coincides with generally the minimum lot size in this zone, which would be 14,420 square feet, which is a third of an acre. And then there's some rounding allowances in there. You can go, you can add 25% to that lot size or decrease it by 25% in order to have a little bit more flexible regulations. That's within the code. So there's a rezone as the second action. The third action is to change the code itself that's associated with the rezone, which is considered a code amendment. And that would be changing the RS20 zone references throughout code to say R15, and then changing the RS20 zone to say R15, and then the corresponding development regulations where we have slightly reduced setbacks in some situations, reduced the lot size, and then made some minor changes to coincide this zone with RS20. So the zoning code as proposed still allows for one single-family dwelling unit per lot, and that will change by the end of the year when middle housing is implemented. So this is a step one to adjust the density range to 2 to 3 units per acre. Pretty soon the state will be required, as I mentioned earlier, middle housing 46 units per lot. So the density will naturally increase in this area. But this is the first step to addressing the inconsistency. Staff is respectfully requesting approval at the next meeting or sometime soon, just so the applicants in this area do have an option to move forward with development. And I will say this does not open up development for everyone. There's still the sewer issue in the area. This was a timely discussion that Director Sarah had earlier about the sewer situation in Riverview. This will not open it up for everybody to develop on septic systems. There is a health district requirement that the lot has to be a minimum of a half an acre, which we are now allowing with 2 to 3 units per acre. 2 units per acre is a half an acre. So it will open up the use of septic for some of the lots, but not all of the lots. There's some parcels that, based on the configuration of the soils and the topography, they need a larger space to accommodate septic. And if they did need a larger space, that would mean the density would go below 2 units per acre, which staff is not recommending at this time because that's more county level development. So it will open it up for some, but not all, and that was intentional. And there were some public comments received on that. So this slide really summarizes what's happening. Happy to answer any questions for the group before we take it for decision next week.
Thank you, Ms. Mattson. Questions from council, comments? No, go ahead, Councilmember Campos.
Just real quick, yeah, I really like the restoring of the 2 and 5, and just the comment. I just want to give a shout out to the Planning Commission. They've been doing really, really good with these suggestions. So just on behalf of the council, just tell them a great job for all this that they've been doing.
Thank you. My comments were just going to be similar. My single comment is, thank you for fixing this and taking it to 2 to 5. And yeah, it broke my heart a little earlier tonight saying, we're going to have to grow again. But I think this does at least give us the fix we need for now, and then we can just kind of go forward from there. So I think we're ready to go forward with this next week. So, yeah. Appreciate that. Anybody in the chambers want to speak on this issue? Happy to take a comment. Going once, going twice, 3 times, seeing no one coming forward, we will move on to number 6, miscellaneous council discussion. Mr. Stewart?
Just one item for public awareness and for the council awareness. So we've received a notice of retirement from our police chief, Chief Roski, and he's done great work for the department, worked for the city for almost 40 years. It's almost unheard of anymore. That's becoming more and more rare. And he leaves our police department in great shape, much improved, one that I would believe is a standard, if not only in the state, but probably in the region and in the country of the quality, especially for a community our size. So great leadership to him. I also spoke with Deputy Chief Cook today, and I will be appointing him as the interim. Mr. Chief Roski will conclude his duties on March 27th. It will take us some time to find the next police chief. And so Mr. Cook has agreed that he'd be happy to fill that role until we find the right individual. And then I will move forward with a national recruitment. So we'll find a recruiter to help us with this, and look forward to participation from the council and staff and the public through that process. Once we've determined some finalists, look for opportunities for the public to come and engage with the candidates and provide some feedback as part of the interview process. We'll encourage council to be involved at different components of that interview process, as well as some of our community partners and our police department staff as well. So more details to come on that in the future. We wish Mr. Roski the best of enjoyment in his retirement, and but we have all of the month of March to show our appreciation to him and say goodbye to him, and then we look forward to the opportunity to looking for the next leadership of this important department within our community. Be happy to answer any questions if the council has any at this time.
Anybody want to speak? I'd be happy to just say congratulations, Chief Cook, and congratulations, Chief Roski. And yes, he has served our community well, and yeah, just wish both of them all the best. That's for sure. Anybody have anything else? Councilmember Hernandez.
I just wanted to highlight upcoming event in downtown Pasco. Cafe Con Arte is having a loteria and karaoke night. Loteria is Mexican bingo. Local businesses have donated a pasta basket. There will be some gift cards to Imbibe, wine tasting from the little wine shop, and Grace Kitchen will donate the pasta basket, and so the prices will be from local businesses, and it starts at 4:30 on Friday, the 27th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Milne.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was just going to comment on Ken Roski, like a personal friend for the last at least 10 years, and we stopped by our business and sometimes would chat with my dad. And anyway, just going to be sad to see him go. A great guy in the community, always positive, and again, it's kind of shocked when I saw the news, but I wish him the best of luck, and also Mr. Cook there as well. So thank you for all your service.
All right, seeing no other lights, just one more thing to add real quick, gentlemen, is staff made available an office for us on the 3rd floor to use. I encourage you to work with Miss Lauren for scheduling. If you need to work out of there, just have meetings with somebody. That way we're not stepping on each other's toes. Because it's not that big of an office. It's nice accommodation. And the other thing, since we're all sharing it, just maybe don't leave any personal effects or anything like that, so we can just kind of have it neutral for all of us to use and everything like that. So, what's that?
I was going to take it for an enterprise.
Oh, yeah, that's it. There it goes. Yep, glad I started with that. So, anyways, it's been a long meeting tonight. I think it's been a really good meeting. Appreciate everybody's input and everything. We are now adjourned.